Here at Ivor Wynne Stadium. They've been filing in for over an hour now, and it's the kind of atmosphere you'd expect for a celebration of Canadian football on the field and off.
We are left only to imagine what this moment must be like. At long last, a chance to fulfill the dream of a lifetime. Just competing is an honor that overwhelms, full of emotion. But to win, to take your place in the history of a game that spans this century, this is a feat only a select few may enjoy. In moments, the 84th Grey Cup game, a defining moment for champions, for those who dare to imagine. There's no game bigger, no time like it. We're here, we're ready. It's cup time, people. The best of Canadian football. Who can wait? Flutie can float them or drive it home himself. Will the legend live on today? Mike's no slowpoke and surely no showboat. He'll let his feet do the talking. This Mike's role is search and destroy. He can make a shambles of any game plan. These guys are cold and calculating. Willie's a force. You can run, but you can't hide. McManus can be magic in any big game. He's got that certain something, and his name is Darren. Watch him pull some sleight of hand. What's left to say, except it's game time.
Well, the venue is Ivor Wynne Stadium. Kickoff less than 30 minutes away. The snow continues to fall. The mighty Toronto Argonauts, who cut a huge swath of the CFL this season, versus the Edmonton Eskimos, who got here the traditional way with a rock-solid defense. Welcome back to Ivor Wynne Stadium as we continue with Grey Cup game coverage. And what doesn't this 84th championship matchup have? First and foremost, it's got traditional Grey Cup weather. It also pits two extraordinarily talented brothers against each other. It features the best kick returners in the game. It's a matchup of an expensive team versus the economy model. And perhaps in its simplest terms, it's a rock-solid defense against the CFL's most potent offense. To describe the proceedings today, a former defensive star and a current quarterback, I speak of James Curry and David Archer. They'll be in the booth with Chris Cuthbert, who'll marshal traffic in his first ever Grey Cup call. And here are Chris, James, and Dave.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening, everybody. James Curry with the Grey Cup ring from the 83 Argos. You played for just about everybody but Hamilton, which surprises me since the folks at Ivor Wynne love mean, nasty football. Is that what we're going to see today because of the conditions?
Well, I think you're going to see that anyway, Chris. We're talking about possibly the two best defensive lineups in the CFL. Both of these teams like to go out and play tenacious brand of football. The coaches believe in that and expect it this afternoon.
David Archer, of course, a great quarterback for 4 years in the CFL. Chris Perez, the left tackle for the Argos, told me the other day, sometimes it doesn't matter how well we play as a team. Doug Flutie's like Michael Jordan. He can win on his own. Do you buy that?
I don't buy that. I think that he's going to have all the cylinders going today. And in the weather, the way it is today, you're going to have people making catches. So that means Doug's going to have to be that much more accurate with the football. So people are going to have to make some plays for him. Doug's not going to be able to carry the whole thing today.
3 men in the booth and 3 phases of the game that could decide the 84th Grey Cup result. It's not just a cliche. Special teams can make the difference. Remember Gizmo against the Argos in '87. And 4 years later, the Rocket burned Calgary with an 87-yard kick return major. Last November in Regina, Baltimore's Chris Wright, a Grey Cup record 82-yard punt return major. And last week, Pinball's 91-yard opening kickoff return of the Eastern Final against Montreal. Gizmo and the Jet, the name of their game, instant field position. There's plenty of firepower even when Toronto and Edmonton aren't on offense. And a touchdown from one of them today could be decisive.
Chris, Melvin Hunter and Benny Goods leads a defense that epitomizes teamwork. It's a zone scheme that shows multiple fronts, and it could have the best front seven scheme that Doug Flutie has ever faced during his entire CFL career. The numbers speak for itself. 70 quarterback sacks during the regular season, but they have to face an almost immovable object in Toronto's offensive line. The big guys up front did not allow a sack in the 2 regular season meetings, and only 18 over the entire course of the season. And that's a luxury that any quarterback would love to have. David?
Well, we've got 2 quarterbacks that are very familiar with the surroundings and the pressure that go along with the Grey Cup. They're with different teams now than they were in '94 and '92, but they're playing with a tremendous amount of confidence. and a drive to win another one. Flutie's been telling anyone that'll listen that this is the most fun he's had playing the game. Although Danny Mac's numbers don't necessarily match up with Doug's, he does do one thing very well, and that's win in the postseason.
No question, it's Danny McManus weather today. Very interesting development here along with the snow is the fact that Doug Flutie is wearing those glass cutter gloves. David, does this surprise you?
It does surprise me because I don't think Doug has worn them all season long, and I haven't seen him wear them in the 4 years that I've played in this league. But it obviously means that it's on his mind. They played 11 times this season indoors.
Well, you have to think the psychological advantage at least goes to Edmonton with the weather. Unfortunately, one of their great veterans will not be in the lineup today. 12-year linebacker Larry Ruck. James, what impact will that have?
Well, you know, it's going to have a huge impact with Edmonton. Larry Ruck has been around for 4 Grey Cups with this team. He has really been the leader in this Edmonton defense. But you got the young man, Chris Dixon, coming in the middle, expecting him to have a big game in front of hometown fans.
Yeah, Dixon is a Hamilton native, and Hamilton apparently is going to be cheering for Edmonton today. That's been very noticeable in the warm-ups. Now let's go back where it is a little bit warmer and rejoin Scott.
Chris, you'd have to have won one of these games to understand how much it means, and here are 2 men who qualify. Kent Austin shared in Grey Cup championships with Saskatchewan in '89, BC in '94. Dave Sapunjas played a significant role in Calgary's victory in '92. Been there, done that, and how much do they wish they were there this year? As it is, they're with us. We welcome Kent Austin and Dave Sapunjas as our game day analysts. Let's talk about the limitless subplots in this game. And Kent, first of all, the Toronto defense, I thought, was greatly overshadowed by the Argo offense this year for obvious reasons. Can the Toronto D carry the day?
Well, I think they can. They've obviously got one of the best defenses in the league. And let's not forget, they're being prepared by probably the best defensive mind in the CFL in Don Matthews. Additionally, I think that their secondary matches up real well against the Edmonton receiving corps, except for one thing, and that is when you find Darren Flutie matched up against Ed Barry, I think that favors Edmonton.
Dave, you had 4 years with Doug Flutie in Calgary. You know the rap that's followed him since '93 when his hands froze when it was 40 below, and anybody's hands would have if your heater was broken then. But is it an unfair rap, and is it a bit rash to suggest whenever we have these kind of conditions that the Argos are in trouble because Doug Flutie can't play outdoors?
I think so. I've played with him in these conditions many times, and he's played fantastic. There was the one game in '93, and you're right. My hands were cold. Everyone else's were cold in the field, and it's no excuse. He probably woke up this morning, and when he saw the snow coming down, I bet you he said to himself he's looking forward to going out and proving.
Kent, you had one word for that rap.
Yeah, it's garbage. Like Dave, I've seen Doug play very well in adverse conditions. And I mean, whose hands wouldn't have been frozen in 40 below weather? So I think it's a bad rap.
Dave, they tried all week to get the media here to goad the brothers Flutie into saying something controversial about each other. The best they could get was Darren admitting that he cuts his hair in the locker room with the trainer's scissors while suggesting that Doug is a pretty boy who gets his hair blown dry. And how's that for a subplot? But what about the CFL axiom? Does the best Flutie win this game today?
Well, maybe. I mean, if Darren goes out there and catches 150 yards receiving and maybe 5-6 catches, then obviously they're moving the ball well, and Doug is not on the field. And if Doug goes out there and throws 4 touchdown passes and rushes for 50 or 60 yards, that means he's doing well. So maybe it does.
Kent, if Danny Mac is connecting early in this game with Sandusky and Darren Flutie, what's that tell us? And on the other hand, if he isn't, what's that tell us?
Well, if he's connecting early with Jim Sandusky, that probably means that Toronto's playing a lot of zone coverage, because I don't expect Sandusky to get much production in man-to-man coverage with the corners that Toronto has out on the field. Darren obviously is capable of putting up big numbers, and we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, I want to bring up the Verschavel factor. I talked about this during the season, but it merits mentioning again today. Pierre Verschavel, of course, an offensive lineman for Toronto. The Argos finished 7-11 a couple of years ago. A day after that, Pierre's wife, Debbie, gave birth to a 7-pound, 11-ounce son, Samuel. And then this year, when the Argos were 10-2, Debbie gave birth on that day to 10-pound, 2-ounce daughter, Claire. So the question is this: if Debbie Verschavel could give birth today to a 17-pound, 3-ounce baby, would the Argos have this thing won?
I think so. I feel sorry for Debbie. That's true.
You guys ponder the Verschavel factor while we talk about the weather. It's going to be more of a factor than originally forecast today. The snow was not expected to accumulate it, but it has been. It's been tough for the crew here. They've had to both plow the field and brush it off. They've been working steadily now for about 3 hours, and it's proving a difficult task to keep the turf clear. The wind could also be a factor, perhaps as much as the snow, which, as you can see, is not letting up. 22 minutes and counting to kick off at Ivor Wynne Stadium. Current conditions are less than perfect, but Grey Cups are often a test of the environment. It's part of the game's history, and Austin and Sapunjas have almost got this Verschavel thing figured out. The Eskimos, officially the home team today. They're also that in the hearts of most of the fans who can't bring it to themselves to cheer for the Argos. We'll be back. Ivor Wynne Stadium, where a great deal of attention's been paid this week to what happened in the stadium 24 years ago. You're not in a time warp. These are the fans who turned out in '72 to watch Ian Center boot the Ticats to victory over Saskatchewan. And from the fans of '72 to the fans of '96 who await the kickoff between the Argos and Eskimos, it's now less than 20 minutes away. The Eskimos are bidding for their 12th Grey Cup, the Argos their 13th, and it just does not matter if they're representing Ontario, because they cannot catch a break from the fans here at Ivor Wynne, who don't find it in their blood to cheer for Toronto. You will not miss any aspect of this Grey Cup championship contest. Developments at field level being tracked by Mark Lee and Steve Armitage. Let's go first to Mark Lee at the bench of the Toronto Argonauts. Mark?
All right, Scott, all kinds of talk this week about how confident, bordering on cocky, the Argos have been after their 15-3 season and their blowout win in the Eastern Final over Montreal. Well, just how relaxed were they leading up to this game today? At 1 o'clock this afternoon, running back Robert Drummond and teammate were found shopping in a downtown Hamilton mall. Now, I didn't get a chance to look into their bags, but if they had the same thing in mind that I did, it was long underwear. This after a rough night for the Argos in their hotel here in Hamilton. A teammate told me that the players were awakened at 2 o'clock in the morning after the power was taken out of their floor in the hotel. Some rowdy Edmonton fans were running up and down the floor, banging on doors, yelling, "Go Eskimos." So, a broken night of sleep and a shopping spree, the hours leading up to this big game for the Argonauts. With more on the Edmonton Eskimos, let's go to Steve Armitage.
Mark, I'm not sure how the Eskimos spent the night, but they were certainly relaxed and very comfortable with the conditions here at Ivor Wynne Stadium. I had a chance to talk to the Giz, Henry Williams, he of electrifying kick returns, and he kept singing, "Let it snow, let it snow." He said, "I prayed for this, and my prayers were answered." Darren Flutie, who could be a big factor for the Eskimos in the receiving department, said, "I love these conditions. This is exactly what we wanted." The head coach of the Edmonton Eskimos, Ron Lancaster, came over and chatted and said, "You know, the only thing that's missing is the sleet. Where is the sleet?" He said, "Hey, we like these conditions. We think we can play well on them." Scott?
All right, Steve, and the betting line is the Toronto Argonauts by 6.5 points. The Eskimos have graciously accepted their role as underdogs, but do not discount the similarities between the Eskimos of '96 and the Eskimos of '93. 3 years ago, the Eskimos got hot at just the right time and won it all. Final thoughts now from Chris Cuthbert, James Curry, and David Archer.
Well, Scott, I'd like James Curry to take us into the dressing room. In 1983, you were getting ready to go out in the field for the Toronto Argonauts about 15 minutes beforehand. Tell us how you were revving your motor then and what's going on in those two rooms.
Well, Chris, this is a game like no other that you'll ever play in your career, whether you've been there or not. It's gut check time. You're making sure you have all your faculties in place, and you don't want to leave anything unprepared and not ready to leave out on the field.
And the thermal underwear as well. David Archer, how does it change for a quarterback? Because you can't just go on adrenaline if you're Doug Flutie or Danny McManus right now.
Well, your preparation has happened all week long, so the hay's in the barn, so to speak. It's the antsy time, waiting to get out on the field and try to do the things that you do well. So I think they're ready to play. It's just the butterflies are wanting to fly right out through the mouth. They want to get out and get it done.
Yeah, and on a personal level, Tony Burst, Mike Kislak, teammates of yours last year, what do you think is going on with them?
Well, I'm happy for them because this is a chance for them to play for it all. We had a chance to last year and didn't get it done. Here's a chance for them to get a ring.
James, the Eskimos do have more experience. They certainly have more experience in these conditions. Will that tell the tale today in any way?
I think it's a great equalizer. Edmonton loves the inclement weather, and this is that type of game. We saw them score 68 points in a couple of weeks ago. So look for them to come out prepared and play a great defense and offensive game today.
The only thing we know for sure is before the day started, the Toronto Argonauts were 6.5-point favorites, but just about everybody agrees to throw that line out the window right now. And we're going to close the window soon, I hope, and go back downstairs and join Scott.
All right, Chris, the last time the Eskimos and the Argonauts met in the Grey Cup game was 1987 at BC Place in Vancouver, and that's remembered as one of the finest displays of championship football ever. The Eskimos won it with a 49-yard field goal in the final minute of the game. Does this one have the potential to come down to the same sort of dramatic finish? I suppose if the Eskimo defense can play the way it has all season long. Only about 16 minutes to kick off now. The Eskimos and Argos getting set to take the field at Ivor Wynne Stadium. When we come back, you'll meet the men who firmly believe they can carry their teams to victory in the 84th Grey Cup game. Player introductions are next. There's the view of Ivor Wynne Stadium on Grey Cup Sunday. Eskimos and Argos have been practicing here since midweek, and since about Thursday, I think, they've been itching to play this game. Waiting is often the worst part of it. A chance now to hear once again from our game day analysts, Kent Austin of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Dave Sapunjas of the Calgary Stampeders. Kent, the Eskimo offense didn't exactly overpower the Calgary Stampeders in the West Final last week. Did just enough to win. Did overpower you 2 weeks earlier, obviously, in that 68-7 debacle. But can it win playing the same kind of ball that it played against Calgary last week? Can it win that way today?
I don't think so. I don't think that you can expect Toronto's offense to only score that few points. If Edmonton's defense comes up and plays big and the snow continues to accumulate on the field, then I think Edmonton's got a better chance because it favors them in the running game. Other than that, I think you can see Toronto score more than 12 points.
Dave, you were the most outstanding Canadian in '91. Grey Cup game was played in Winnipeg that year, and you recall well the Argos coming onto the field, holding their helmets up high, celebrating already, and many accused them of being showboats, but they won. Do you see any of that in this Argo team?
Oh, for sure. They came out with a lot of attitude in '91. I think you'll see that now, and that's sort of indicative of Don Matthews. He has a lot of confidence, and so do his players. They'll come out with a lot of pride, and they'll show a lot of character because they have a lot of character.
All right, the moment is upon us now. Edmonton and Toronto are all set to work it out. We've analyzed this game 8 ways to Sunday, but it's left for the players to settle the issue on the field, and so we're ready to meet the people who will render the decision. Steve Armitage will handle the player introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, we'd like to introduce the players for the 84th Grey Cup game. Beginning with the Western champion Edmonton Eskimos and their starting defensive unit. And in number 46 from the University of Wisconsin, Melvin Hunter. The nose tackle, number 79 from Montreal, Derek McCready. Number 40 at defensive tackle from Alcorn State, Benny Goods. At the other defensive end from Bishop's University, number 89, Leroy Blue. A linebacker from Washington State, number 27, Senor Mobley. At linebacker, number 36, from Simon Fraser, Hamilton's own Bruce Dixon. Also at linebacker, from the University of Kansas, number 39, Willie Pless. On the corner, from Furman University, number 24, Kavis Reed. Out of Memphis State, number 26, Glenn Rogers Jr. The safety, number 28 from Edmonton and the University of Alberta, Trent Brown. From the University of Colorado, at halfback, number 3, Darian Hagan. And on the other corner from Baylor, number 10, Malcolm Frank. Head coach Ron Lancaster and the rest of the Western champion Edmonton Eskimos. The Eastern champion Toronto Argos and their starting offense. At center, the league's most outstanding lineman, number 63, Mike Kiselak. Starting at guard, number 58 from the University of Ottawa, Hamilton native Chris Gieskas. At the other guard, number 59 from Quebec City, Pierre Vercheval. At tackle, number 65 from the University of Calgary, New Westminster's Vic Stevenson. Also a tackle from the University of Kansas, number 62, Christopher Perez. Number 28 at running back from Saskatoon, Dwayne Dimitrition. At slot back, a Halifax native from Western, number 81, Tyrone Williams. Number 86 at wide receiver from Howard University, Jimmy Cunningham. From Hamilton, also at wide receiver, number 88, Paul Massotti. At running back, out of Syracuse, number 29, Robert Drummond. Number 31 at running back, from William and Mary, Mike Clemens. And at quarterback, the CFL's five-time most outstanding player from Boston College, number 2, Doug Flutie. Head coach Don Matthews and the rest of the Toronto Argos. We direct your attention to center field as we welcome today's game officials. The referee from Townsend, Ontario, working his 10th Grey Cup game, number 62, Jake Ireland. From Ottawa, in his 4th Grey Cup, number 67, the umpire, Ross Saunders. Today's head linesman, number 76, also from Ottawa, Ron Artell. The line judge, number 29, from Bloomington, Illinois, his 1st Grey Cup, Doug Rosenbaum. Our side judge, from Goleta, California, number 47, Gary Cavaletto, another Grey Cup rookie. The back judge, number 22, Victoria, BC's Murray Clark, his 1st Grey Cup. And the field judge from the city of Hamilton, number 54, Alan McColman, working his 7th Grey Cup game. The alternate referee is Ken Lazaruk, and the alternate official is Don Carmichael. Would you please rise and join Dan Chamroy, the 1996 Dora Music Award winner, now appearing in Robin Hood for the singing of our national anthem. Escorting Dan is the Officers Color Guard of the Hamilton Detachment of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Dan?
Hey!
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for
We'd now like to call the team captains to center field to meet the Grey Cup dignitaries. His Worship, Robert Morrow, the Mayor of Hamilton, the Regional Chairman of the Hamilton Wentworth District, Mr. Terry Cook, the Commissioner of the Canadian Football League, Mr. Larry Smith, the co-chairs of the 96 Grey Cup, Marnie Paikin and Ron Foxcroft, and presiding over the coin toss, an athlete who trains in Hamilton and won 2 bronze medals in cycling at the 96 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Clara Hughes. And now for the coin toss, here's referee Jake Ireland. Jake?
Gentlemen, there's the head. There's the tail. Toronto, you're going to call it in the air, and I'm going to let it land on the ground. Heads is called. It is a tail. Edmonton, you have won the toss. You'll defer to the second half. Toronto, it's your choice. You'll take the ball? Thank you.
Well, they've worked their entire football lives just to have this chance. Doug has 5 Outstanding Player Awards, but only 1 Grey Cup ring. By the way, he's taken off those glass cutter gloves. Darren has 1 ring from 2 years ago. Which one of the brothers Flutie will secure final bragging rights today? The kickoff is next. Well, back at Ivor Wynne Stadium, the Doug Flutie watch continues, and apparently he's got the gloves back on. Happy we got that straightened out just before kickoff. Let's go quickly to Mark Lee.
All right, Scott. The field conditions have deteriorated. Even though they've been cleaning this field for 3 hours, it continues to snow heavily. The Argos, most of their linemen and defensive linemen are wearing a shoe called the Acton Ice Shoe. It's no longer made. The last pairs were bought by equipment man Dan Webb in 1991. Those are the shoes they wore when they won the 1991 Grey Cup. So they're hoping for similar traction here today. Scott?
All right, Mark, it's the Eskimos, champions of the West, the Argos, class of the East, ready to engage in a contest of strength, skill, and will. The 84th Grey Cup is on the line. Here's Chris Cuthbert.
Thank you, Scott. We're ready for the snowdown in Steeltown. So huddle up from coast to coast for what should be a terrific football game on what is a perfect late November Sunday evening for Canadian football. There's Mike Clements. And can he repeat what he did to open the Eastern Final last week? Remember, he returned it 91 yards for a touchdown, awaiting the kickoff from Sean Fleming, who was a Grey Cup hero in 1993, top Canadian. And we are underway with the 84th Grey Cup game. And Mike Clements takes it away from Jimmy Cunningham. And Pinball Clements finds a hole and is up to the 35-yard line. 15-yard return after the 55-yard kickoff. Well, there's the 5-time outstanding player. Doug Flutie in his 3rd Grey Cup game says he's more relaxed this year. There are his numbers in the previous 2 games. A winner in 92, but again, the gloves are on, David, and this is a surprise.
Well, I think it's a surprise, but obviously Doug feels comfortable with him and he wouldn't have him on.
He'll operate out of the shotgun to open it up. Flutie, a very fast starter. And his first pass of the game is dropped. by Paul Mazzotti. Mazzotti, the Stony Creek native, who dreamed of playing in a Grey Cup game here in Hamilton for his beloved Tiger Cats as a youngster. Mike Kiselak is the top offensive lineman in the Canadian Football League, and this line allowed just 18 sacks during the year to lead the Canadian Football League. There's Mazzotti, a 1,000-yard receiver once again, and James, no shortage of weapons here.
Well, you know, Doug Flutie has 5 receivers that caught over 60 balls during the regular season, and he's got to go to the airways once again.
2nd and 10 from the 35 of Toronto. Flutie in trouble, got it away, but it's incomplete. Malvin Hunter had his hands on the quarterback.
You know, we touched on it in the opening. Toronto did not allow a sack against Edmonton this year on their quarterback, but already Malvin Hunter, who was 2nd in the CFL in sacks, put the pressure on Doug Flutie.
14 sacks on the season for Hunter, and he almost gets one on the opening defensive series.
They just brought an extra guy into the pass who couldn't pick him up, and Mal comes off clean and sacks Doug Flutie.
Here's the punt from Vanderjagt. Henry Williams straight up across the 45 to the 46-yard line. 35-yard punt by Mike Vanderjagt. And Gizmo with a 7-yard return. Michael O'Shea, first man downfield to meet him. Well, here comes Danny McManus, his first Grey Cup start, despite the fact he has 2 Grey Cup rings.
Well, Danny McManus had been a backup in Winnipeg and in BC, but he came off that memorable win in BC in '94 when Pasaglia kicked that last-second field goal.
Great track record on a snowy track. And from the 47, Eskimos first down. Pitch screen, they go to Eddie Brown. And Brown across the 50-yard line, and he's tossed out of bounds by Donald Smith at the 52, a 5-yard pickup for McManus. And we'll set the offense for you for the Eskimos. Rod Conop is their great veteran. 3 Grey Cup rings, and he was wearing them this week to try and inspire his teammates. And David, important to get Darren Flutie in the game early, but especially important, you played with Eddie Brown. He likes the ball early, too.
Very important to get Eddie Brown in the game. It gets him in the flow, gets his mind on what's going on, and really focus. This is something Ronnie asks his son every day. He says, when are we getting Eddie Brown in the game plan? Already involved.
2nd and 5 for Edmonton. They go to the wide side of the field. There's Darren Flutie. So back-to-back completions for Danny McManus, and a 16-yard gain to the other Flutie. The Eskimos serenaded him on the bus ride home to Calgary, calling him the good Flutie. Here's the defense. They'll go up against Demetrius Maxey, outstanding in the Eastern Final, a couple of sacks. Great in the Grey Cup for Baltimore last year. Donnie Wilson has 3 Grey Cup rings. He's won Grey Cups for either of these 2 teams. And Ed Barry had an interception for a touchdown in the 91 Grey Cup for the Toronto Argonauts. Here's Eric Blunt trying to get outside. Johnny Harris was blocked out of the way. And it's down to the Argo 40 for Eric Blunt, the 1,000-yard runner, and a flag is down.
You know, one of the things that's going to create a problem for Toronto on this slippery turf is that they're a great pursuing team. And when you come with misdirection...
Objectionable conduct, Toronto number 50, first down.
And when you come with misdirection and you get that flow going the opposite direction and you come back against it, their footing is not going to be as good. Michael O'Shea draws the first major penalty of the game, playing back in Hamilton.
Don Matthews says penalties are a reflection of the coaches, and he won't like this one.
Well, he's not. You know, Michael O'Shea, you know, there's a lot of emotion with him coming back to Steeltown, and he took an extra shot on Mark Tobert.
Native of North Bay, coming off his best game as an Argonaut in the Eastern Final against Montreal last Sunday. So Edmonton in business, first down from the Argo 30. Here's McManus with time, downfield, and Flutie went up to get it. Good coverage there by Donald Smith.
Just a zone coverage that time. They got Flutie going right up the seam. Danny decided to try to take a shot down the field and had Jim Sandusky open in the right flat. But he knows that he wants Flutie. The throw is a little bit long, and Smith comes in and makes a nice play, but Sandusky is open.
And once again, we see the unsure footing of Toronto's defensive front 7 not being able to get pressure on McManus as of yet.
So it's 2nd and 10 from the Argo 30. McManus with 3 receivers right side. Has time, and there was miscommunication there as Darren Flutie hooked up, and McManus thought he was going to have the flat pattern.
Well, these are some of the problems that go on when you got option routes on. This time he hooks up. He expected him to go to the flat, and a lot of times that's what happens.
One of the things, they have to find a more consistent ground game. When you have weather like this, this is where Eric Blunt and Tony Burst are going to have to get some extra work this afternoon. They can't just rely on their passing attack.
Well, Sean Fleming was terrific in the 93 Grey Cup game. Outstanding last week. 5 for 6 against Calgary. And he'll have to contend with the winds that are blowing across and into the face of Fleming. This from 37 yards out. And Fleming has missed it to the right. And it'll be brought out. This is Jimmy Cunningham. And Cunningham stopped at the 19-yard line. So the first opportunity to score goes by the boards for Edmonton as Cunningham brings it out 23 yards. Darren Flutie getting attention on the bench, and he took that enormous hit from Anthony McClanahan last week in the Western Final, and even a couple of days ago said he still felt nauseous and a little uncertain, was hearing bells in his ears.
Well, he went high for one of the McManus's passes close to the goal line, and he was slammed down hard to the turf by Smith, and he's getting checked by the team's physician.
At the 19-yard line, Argos first down. There's a high shotgun snap. Flutie down on it, slides into the end zone. Is it a safety? Yes. Doug Flutie recovers the ball. They're ruling he was touched in the end zone. The momentum took it in for the 2 points.
A big break earlier in the game for Edmonton. Robert Drummond trying to take the direct snap from Mike Kislak, and the ball was just too high, and he couldn't get his hands on it because he was looking for the hole at the line of scrimmage. Edmonton with 2 points early. Big moves, big momentum swing at this point.
This is certainly a situation that is found out perfectly for Ron Lancaster. He couldn't have asked for a better start. A bad snap here. Drummond doesn't handle it. The conditions generate a lot of this. We saw Mazzotti drop a pass that was right in his hands earlier in the ball game. Here a snap that probably would have been caught in good conditions isn't handled.
Well, you know, everyone back in Edmonton was praying for the bad weather because they've won most of their playoff games in conditions such as this. And with the snow flying in Toronto, not accustomed to playing in elements such as this nature, Edmonton right now has a clear-cut advantage here in the first quarter.
And what is dangerous is so much of the Argo offense is predicated on the direct snaps and the shotgun snaps of Mike Kislak.
Well, they've done a lot of that in the past couple of weeks. Mike Clements as well as Robert Drummond taking the snaps. Now Doug Flutie might have to find himself going back up under center here early in the game.
I think it's certainly a situation where some of the trick stuff that goes on, where you depend on direct snaps and this and that, little pitches, this and that, that changes a little bit because your precision is worn down because of the conditions.
Gizmo's back after the safety. The Argos are forced to kick off from their 35. Ball hits the turf, and Eric Blunt has some trouble but picks it up, and he'll step out at the Edmonton Eskimo 32. I talked to Mike Kislak earlier in the week about these snaps, and he normally wears gloves. He said if the football got really greasy, he'd take the gloves off today, but so far he's sticking with the gloves on.
Well, we had a similar problem in the Southern Division final last year against Baltimore. We had a couple of shotgun snaps get by us. Mike was the center in that game. I was probably more to blame than Mike was, but it rears its ugly head again.
And so McManus, who moved the football on the Eskimos' first possession, has the ball at their own 32. They swing it out to Blunt, and it's incomplete.
Well, when you have a back that close out of the backfield, you must make sure you put some touch on it.
Just talked to Paul Musatti on the Argo bench. He's complaining that the footballs are frozen and they're as hard as a brick. I talked to the ball boy before the game. He told me he would not be keeping the footballs warm near the gas heaters on the sideline. They're being kept in the open in a duffel bag. Chris?
Well, the kickers won't be happy about that either, and you wonder if that played a factor in Sean Fleming's opening miss. 2nd and 10. And McManus looks for Jim Sandusky. I might as well call him the snowman because Sandusky is always at his best in these elements.
Well, you know, one of the greatest pluses about having a receiver coach also playing a dual role as a receiver is that he has a great understanding of defensive philosophy. He knows how to read the coverage when he gets to the line of scrimmage, and that was just pitch and catch for he and Danny McManus.
Third Grey Cup for Jim Sandusky, 35 years of age, and he won the Grey Cup along with Don Matthews in '85 for BC. First down, here's Eric Blunt, and a hole off the left side, and Blunt up to the 53-yard line.
Well, we've already seen a good mix offensively from Edmonton. They've shown the misdirection. Here they come right at you. Blunt finds a nice crease in this big front behind this big offensive line. They put Jim Sandusky in the slot, which we didn't expect. We expected him outside. He's in the slot. So a lot of mix here from Ronnie Lancaster Jr.
And the Eskimos, there are the balls. I don't know if they are being kept that warm in that duffel bag. Second and short, and they stuffed the run that time. And that's Demetrius Maxey, Oscar Giles there. And a big defensive stop by the front four of the Argos.
Demetrius Maxey was the youngest player in last year's Grey Cup and had an outstanding game playing tackle for Baltimore. He has been moved back into that position for today's game with the loss of Andrew Stewart at tackle. And he is a dominant force. He played 9 games this year for Montreal before being picked up by Toronto, but this is his natural position at defensive tackle. And the 2 sacks last week versus Montreal, an outstanding game, and he was playing defensive end in that game.
They're that short. Less than a yard.
You're a gambler. Do you gamble in this situation with the slippery surface?
All season long, you've been telling me to go if it's even 2 yards.
Well, I'm going in this situation. This is for a championship. I mean, other games got you here. This is one you already have the advantage with the safety that you've gotten off of Toronto early. If you get the first down now, they're really at a big disadvantage. Ron Lancaster Jr., the offensive coordinator.
I think certainly if you've got a fullback that's 245 pounds, this is a good situation to go in. I agree with you, James. I think they go here.
And, David, they also bring Willie Pless, the linebacker, in and put him at a fullback position. So they got a lot of power in this backfield. Look for him to go right up the pike with it.
Rod Conop, Leo Groenwagen, Chris Green, the rest of the offensive linemen dig in. That's Tony Burse going high, and he'll have it. Tony Burse, 238-pound fullback.
And, David, you had the luxury of having Tony with you down in San Antonio, and you know what type of load he is.
Yeah, he's a huge load. Here's Willie Pless coming off. He just likes to stick his head in there and move the pile back. That's all they're trying to do is get some push into the second level. But Tony Burse is a guy that has a tremendous amount of versatility. Catch the ball, too.
And, David, also, you remember he set the tempo of that game last week in Calgary when he came down and caused that fumble on the opening kickoff.
Ball just over midfield. Edmonton first down. There's Burse again. And Tony stacked up after a couple of yards, driven back. David, when we talked to Ron Lancaster and Ron Lancaster Jr., they emphasized the importance of getting 4 yards at least on first down.
I think it's very important that they're positive on first down. Toronto likes to play a blanket zone most of the time, and if you don't produce anything on first down, now it allows them to go to the 30 package and just rush 3 people and draw 9 into cover.
Well, when you look at situations, David, on first down, you like to pick up 4 and 5. When you had a 2nd and 7, what was your favorite call in this scenario?
Well, I looked to the coach and asked if they were sending anybody else in, because that's a bad call.
Well, they've got 2nd and 7 here against Don Matthews' defense. Good protection for McManus, and it's Burse out of the backfield. He'll be close to the first down, but he may be short as Tony Burse is stopped up at the Argo 45.
These are the things that Tony Burse gives you. He has the power to pick up 1 yard, but he also has the versatility to slip out of the backfield. There's a 238-pounder catching the ball in the backfield, and then watch him deal out some punishment.
And, Chris, I'll tell you one thing this is doing. This is keeping Doug Flutie on the sideline. He is spending a lot of time on the sideline. It's cold out there, and even if you're out there with the heaters on the sideline, your legs have a tendency to get cold.
Well, Burse powered his way past Mike O'Shea to move the chains. It's a first down. Danny McManus has started the game 4 for 7 and 40 yards. Doug Flutie 0 for 2. First down, Edmonton. McManus steps up, looks deep. Sandusky up for it and can't make the one-handed catch as he was tangled up with Donald Smith.
Toronto came with something we expected. Bill Bradley, the defensive coordinator for the Argos, had told us that they wanted to do was try to mix up their looks. Here they come with the They come with a blitz to the outside from the, here's Jim Sandusky trying to come back and make a play that's underthrown and almost comes up with a great catch, but they come with a blitz from the halfback, the strong side of the field. The tackle recognizes it, drops, and picks up the guy as Givens drops into coverage.
So Sandusky comes to the wide side again on 2nd and 10 from the Argo 45. They call the draw play to Blunt, and he is down at the 40. Oscar Giles in on the tackle.
Well, right now, this is what Edmonton has wanted to do, is control the ball. If you look at the clock, it's 9 minutes gone in the first quarter already, and Doug Flutie has only touched the football twice. He has dominated Edmonton two games that they've played offensively, but now they're playing it into Edmonton's hand, keeping him on off the field.
Well, under good conditions, it would be within Sean Fleming's range. Would have been a 47-yard attempt, but in these conditions, Glenn Harper is on to punt, and the Jet, Jimmy Cunningham, is back, and he scorched Edmonton in both regular season meetings with exceptional punt returns. Harper with a pooch kick, which goes out of bounds, and so they won't put the ball in Cunningham's hands. 5:46 to go in the first quarter. Nothing. The Eskimos leading on that safety. You saw the time of possession. The Eskimos with 14 plays, and the Argos with just 3. You can see Kiselak continues to wear the gloves as the Argos work against the stingiest defense in the CFL. And Flutie goes right back to the shotgun. Out of the backfield, Pinball Clements can't hang on. The man who led the CFL in receiving this year with 116 catches.
Well, we're gonna get the Argonauts right. Well, Edmonton right now with some pass interference. A flag came in late, but Toronto right now is struggling, trying to get some rhythm within their offense.
Contact on an eligible receiver. Edmonton number 27. First down.
Edmonton knows that they're going to throw the balls. Toronto basically has already scrapped the run game. David talked about how difficult it is to have all that misdirection in the backfield, and you won't see Drummond and Pinball handling on too many direct snaps.
Senior Mobley is the man called away from the football for illegal contact. It gives the Argos a first down. And Flutie guns this one complete, and that's Paul Mazzotti with the catch, the pride of Stony Creek. And he shows his emotion, fired up playing in this game at home, and that's an 11-yard pickup for Mazzotti.
Paul Mazzotti, one of Doug's favorite players to go to in controlled passing game situations. Here, Mazzotti just reads the coverage, sits it down, Doug sticks him with the ball, and it's a positive gain.
Last year, he was the only Argonaut to have over 50 receptions. This year, the team has 5 receivers with over 60.
At the 35 of Toronto, first down for Flutie, who looks deep and had the man open. Ball falling incomplete as Jimmy Cunningham got in behind the Eskimos secondary.
But the pressure is coming from the front four of Edmonton. Derek McCready did a tremendous job of collapsing the pocket. Now that's something that Doug is not accustomed to, throwing passes and ended up on his backside.
And that translates into helping the secondary. That time Jimmy the Jet was wide open for possibly a big play, but Doug didn't have the time to hang on and make the throw.
James, you mentioned it off the top in that matchup comparison. The heat of the front 7 of Edmonton, it's a veteran group. Most of them have been together for the last 4 years. And they had 70 sacks on the year. There's early movement. This time McCready a little anxious. Let's find out if he was drawn offside.
Well, I think Chris Giaskis might have bobbed a little bit, and that's what McCready was looking at, but looks like Edmonton is going to be moving backward.
Outside, Edmonton number 79, still second down.
Now this is the biggest game of his career. He spent a lot of time in this league. As you see him right there moving a little bit, and he was the one that did jump off sides, but Derek McCready is very anxious. We talked about the early game jitters, and he has a lot of them.
So McCready checks out on this play. It's 2nd and 5 with 4:08 remaining in the first quarter. 2-0 Eskimos. Flutie, Pete from Arrow Martin gets outside and throws downfield and completes the pass.
He was out of bounds on the play, Chris. Doug Flutie could not see the out-of-bounds marker with the snow all over the field, but the pressure has been consistent from the front seven of Edmonton. Errol Martin, who played his high school football right here in the Hamilton area, got in on the Toronto quarterback.
I'll tell you what, outstanding Canadian Leroy Blue was hunting him hard from the backside. He makes a pretty big hit right on the sideline.
Robert Drummond caught the pass in traffic. So Flutie shows you his elusive qualities, but ran out of real estate. And it's third down. Here's another local product, Oakville's Mike Vanderjagt. Good punt. Gizmo back at his 26. Gets outside. Henry Williams, and he's driven out of bounds by Robert Drummond. But a good return of 20 yards by Gizmo after a 49-yard punt by Mike Vanderjagt. Well, let's go back 24 years ago when it wasn't as snowy in Hamilton. Ian Sutter on the field to kick the winning field goal with no time left on the clock. It sank the Saskatchewan Roughriders, a disappointment for Ron Lancaster that day. He had won a Grey Cup in '66 as a player, in 1960 with Ottawa, and 3 years ago as a head coach, and now with his son as the offensive coordinator here. And Ron Lancaster Jr. had an interesting statement the other day. He said, you know, I never realized how smart my dad was until we started to work together. Didn't know how much of the game he knew, all facets, special teams, defense, as well as his great quarterbacking knowledge. First down, Edmonton with the football. McManus going up top for Eddie Brown. What a catch! Eddie Brown! Touchdown, Edmonton! .64 yards, McManus to Brown for a spectacular opening major score.
And the Grey Cups have been a showcase for Eddie Brown. In the '93 game, he caught a 52-yarder in that game from Damon Allen, and now he takes this one all the way to the house. But the offensive line gave Danny Mack the time, and Eddie Brown on just a go route.
Sean Fleming in to add the extra point, puts it through, and the Edmonton Eskimos have a 9-point lead here in the opening quarter of the 84th Grey Cup game. David Archer's old receiver, but you had a winning touchdown hook up in the World League final.
Well, here it is, just bump and run coverage, and he runs the fade just like he did in '92 for me to win the World League championship. Juggles the ball. Look at the great catch. I mean, Eddie Brown's tremendous concentration in bad conditions, and this is the big play guy they needed to get involved.
And you think about it, Eddie has been somewhat invisible during the first two playoff games that Edmonton had played, and some people started to think that he wasn't an inclement weather player, but when it's all on the line and the big game is there, he comes up with the biggest catch of the game thus far.
He must have been involved in some of those hacky sack games because he was pretty good with the feet here too.
Well, you talk about all-out effort using every extremity of the body to get it. He went out and brought it in, and Danny McManus, so that's the key. You got to put it out, David, where a receiver can run underneath the ball. You got to put it through that drop zone.
You're exactly right. He kept the ball on the field, allowed Eddie to come back inside and make the play. Not bad coverage there from Smith either. Just a great play by Eddie Brown.
Downtown Eddie Brown with the opening major score. He was third in the CFL in receiving during the regular season. 70 catches, 1,325 yards.
Danny McManus over there getting congratulations. You know, he shoulders so much of the burden of this team when it's struggling.
Sean Fleming kicks it off. It'll be pinball from his 25. Goes to the wide side of the field. Eskimos stringing it out. And don't give him a lane. Trent Brown, the safety, was the final man to force him out of touch.
Downtown Eddie Brown, a look at him over there on the bench, keeping his composure, but the 64-yard reception for the touchdown. He had 114 yards receiving in 1993, but no catch has ever been bigger than that for Eddie Brown in his CFL career.
I'll tell you, people overlook this guy. You know, he had over 1,300 yards receiving this year. He was an all-star, I think, for the first time in his career. He felt like he'd been overlooked many times. He comes up with a big one.
Here's Flutie going to work, swings it out, puts it into the hands of the explosive Jimmy Cunningham. And Cunningham is up to the Argo 50. Kavis Reed, the cornerback, touched him down, 16-yard gain for the Jet.
You know, as the season went on, they had to find a new way to get the ball in Jimmy Cunningham's hands. They moved him from wide out into the slot to get him closer to Doug Flutie, because once he gets his hands on the ball, he's ever so dangerous.
Cunningham, 62 catches, 800 yards, and he led the CFL in all-purpose yards this season. First down, Toronto. And Flutie goes wide side of the field and delivered the football high and incomplete. Dwayne Dimitrition, the University of Saskatchewan product, was the intended receiver.
Well, the situation here is Edmonton splitting the field. They're playing 4-on-3 on both sides of the field. That time, Dimitrition should have stayed out wide. That's what Doug was telling him, is he wanted him to stay wide, stretch that coverage so he has to throw to the outside.
Under 2 minutes to play, first quarter of the Grey Cup game. And it's Edmonton 9, Toronto no score. Flutie faces 2nd and 10 from the Argo 50. Here comes the rush, and Doug will take off. First time today, first down Toronto, as Flutie uses that extra option he has, a 14-yard pickup.
And that's similar to a run that he made back in '94 versus BC in the snow, when he needed to pick up the yards to keep the drive moving, to march his team down to put him on the scoreboard where he thought would be the winning touchdown, but his brother foiled that afternoon. Doug takes it all on himself to get the yardage needed.
756 yards rushing during the regular season. First down, Flutie, better time, working deep, a battle down there, and Mazzotti stretched out, couldn't bring it in.
Now, you'll be hard-pressed to beat this guy deep. Malcolm Frank is probably one of the best cover guys one-on-one in the league. He squats, which meaning he sits down at 10 yards, he bumps you off, he pesters receivers, and it's really difficult. He funnels the receiver out of bounds here, which is what he does so well on the deep route.
You know, and one of the things about Malcolm Frank, that is no receiver this season has caught more than 3 balls on him in any football game.
Doug Flutie, 2 for 7, 28 yards, and wearing gloves for the first time this season. Here's that little shovel pass inside. They give it to Cunningham, and he found a crease and should have a first down as he slides inside the 35. Jed Roberts, who comes in the defensive rotation for the Eskimos, made the tackle.
Well, James had already talked about the importance of getting the ball in Cunningham's hands. He's the version of Eddie Brown for Toronto, and here he gets the pitch inside, gets some good blocking, and wisely gets on the ground, gets what he can get down.
David, another thing you get with Cunningham and Clemens, you got 2 guys with very low center of gravity, so their feet really don't come that high off the ground, so their footing is better than most players.
Argos threatening for the first time today. This should be the final play of the first quarter from the 35. Flutie dumps it off. Here's Clements. Pinball Clements. And he's caught by Willie Pless, but not before he gets to the 15. A 20-yard pass and run play from Flutie to Clements as the Argos are slowly getting their offense untracked. And that is the opening 15 minutes of football in the 84th Grey Cup game.
At Ivor Wynne Stadium, the Argonauts threatening to start the second quarter of play. Let's go quickly to Steve Armitage.
And Scott, they have got the carpet cleaner on the artificial turf here at Ivor Wynne. One of the big problems for both quarterbacks is trying to find the out-of-bounds line. It is white, of course, and it's covered in snow, so the carpet cleaner is going to get an extra workout here because it is snowing harder than it was at the start of the game. Scott?
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Dave Sapuntis, one of our game day analysts. Dave, this drive by Toronto has been all on the ground. It's working great for them.
It absolutely is. Edmonton's actually done a good job trying to take away the short passes and forcing Doug to throw the long ball, which hasn't been all that successful. But Toronto is moving the ball fairly well with a couple drives, a couple run plays, giving 2 to Cunningham and then allowing Flutie to run for another first down.
Chris, the Toronto offense looks to be in gear.
Starting to play Flutie ball late in that first quarter after a slow start. But when you see the ball in Cunningham's hands and Clemens' hands, that's a good sign for the Argos.
Yeah, he does a good job of distributing the ball to everybody, and he has to get everybody involved to win this game.
Well, this is the point on the field that Doug becomes even more dangerous. This is where he likes to take the ball on himself and try to run with it. This is where his quarterback draw could come into play right here.
Well, the Edmonton Eskimos dominate the opening 15 minutes. Here's Pinball Clemens, who made that last catch. Earlier this year, I asked Don Matthews about Pinball Clemens and whether or not he was worried about finding a spot for him in the Argos offense after a rough season last year. He said when he talked to Bob Nicholson about the job, he asked Nicholson whether he had the authority to cut Mike Clemens. Nicholson says it's your job, you're in charge of football operations, but I guess the strength of Don Matthews is he finds a way to best utilize his personnel. And instead of cutting Mike Clemens, which would have been a public relations nightmare, he found a job for Pinball Clemens, catching 116 balls this year.
Well, I know 8 other teams would have picked up Pinball Clemens had he become available, and I would have been one of the first guys in line trying to get him in Ottawa.
Well, it took about 5 games for him to really mesh him into the offense this year. You know, he struggled between receiver and running back. He didn't make an all-star team this year, but he was probably the most valuable player to his team beyond Doug Flutie, and he also won the Tom Pate Award this season for most outstanding player by the Players Association for what he contributes through his team and the community.
You know, I was talking to Ken Austin earlier, who's down in our booth with Scott and Dave Sapunjas, and he was saying that they should have created a position to get him on the All-Star team because he has that kind of season. He should have been on the team.
It was a huge injustice. I mean, you put him on there just as an honorary member or whatever, but Pinball Clemens deserved to be on the All-Star team. He has always displayed great leadership and great teamwork.
All I know is the media guys felt a little better when the players didn't vote him to their team either, but it was the greatest season anybody's ever had in the CFL without All-Star recognition. Still delayed here as they continue to clean the sidelines. You know, Doug Flutie calls Pinball Clemens his sponge, because they run a lot of similar routes.
Well, I think that's true. I think Dave would concur to that. Maybe we can get Dave to mention that, but I think a lot of the routes probably bring back a lot of memories for Dave Sapunjas and Doug Flutie hooking up in Calgary.
All right, we're ready to go. Second quarter underway. It's 1st and 10 Argos from the Eskimo 15. Pressure on Flutie, who steps up, swings it off to the right side. And this is Clemens, and he's forced out of touch by Willie Pless.
And I tell you, that was a very dangerous play by Doug Flutie. There was a holding call, but he also threw a lateral on that play. Mike Clemens was actually behind his quarterback in poor conditions like this. If that ball had slipped out and Edmonton recovered, there was no one to stop him. Mike Clemens, though, with great hands, pulls it in.
Well, this is a situation where they had the quick screen to Clemens, just trying to get him the ball quickly.
Holding. Toronto number 62. Repeat first down.
And Pinball picks up some yardage, but they get the penalty.
Chris Perez, an outstanding left offensive tackle, but Malvin Hunter, a tremendous pass rusher, putting a lot of pressure on Flutie early, and he had to hold to keep him off his quarterback.
Chris Perez out of the same school, Kansas, as the great Willie Pless. 1st and 20 from the 25. And here's Derek McCready, and he got to Flutie. The sack pack gets to Doug Flutie.
You talk about a player wanting a game, Derek McCready. Desire. He's had a career that has been plagued by injuries in BC and in Ottawa. He found himself a home in Edmonton this season, playing on the natural grass. He felt at the end of the season this was as healthy as he's ever been in his career, and you can see he still has some explosion left in those legs.
5-yard loss. 2nd and 25, Toronto. The ball now back at the 30. Flutie gets it away, and Clemens can't hang on. And it'll be 3rd down. And in these conditions, it's no gimme as far as field goal range is concerned.
It's going to be unsure footing for Mike Vanderjagt.
Well, the coverages that they're playing is just a combination coverage on both sides of the field, and Calgary's trying to flood those coverages and put somebody in each hole. Here, Pinball's the only guy that's open, is the guy in the flat, and Pinball doesn't make the play.
Mike Vanderjagt's longest field goal of the year is 51 yards. I asked him about the footing and the conditions on the field today and how that might affect his range. He says it'll take about 5 yards off his best kick, and that he won't plant as hard with his plant foot on the surface of the snow and artificial turf as you see him look for a spot to make the kick. Chris?
Well, Vanderjagt is surveying a 37-yard attempt.
You know, what I like from the officials right here is that they are allowing him time to clear off the ice off the field, because the grounds crew has not been able to keep the field clean enough. That's a great move by the officials.
Vanderjagt said his high point of the year was a winning field goal against Edmonton. And this will be a high point too, as Vanderjagt makes no mistake. The Oakville native has the Argos on the board. Early second quarter, Ivor Wynne Stadium, Hamilton, and the Edmonton Eskimos with a 9-3 lead, a 64-yard touchdown pass from McManus to Eddie Brown, and a 2-point safety conceded by Doug Flutie, and now the Argos on the board.
Edmonton's defense comes up big. Pinball had caught the pass and run down to around the 10, and then Edmonton pushed him back and made him try the long field goal, which was converted.
Well, this is a defense that's been able to withstand the challenges all season long, so this is no exception. They've played Toronto close in 2 regular season games.
Well, the Eskimos have enjoyed better field position so far. McManus delivering it behind Nick Mazzoli, who has returned to the lineup for Edmonton. He replaces Larry Ruck as a non-import on the roster. The great linebacker of the Eskimos out with a hamstring problem.
That's a very common play. Whenever you get the roll up of the corner and a half drops deep, you want to get a guy in that hole. And Mazzoli and McManus just weren't on the same page there.
Well, there's North Bay's Mike O'Shea digging in as the Eskimos are 2nd and 10 from the 35. Over the middle, there's Mazzoli, and he's wrapped up at the 42, and he'll be short of the first down as the middle linebacker out of North Bay made the tackle.
You know, this was a frustrating year for Nick Mazzoli, the hamstring injury as we see it, and that's the reason why he replaced Larry Ruck. He was a 1,000-yard receiver for the first time in his pro career last season. Mike O'Shea, closing though, had an outstanding game versus Montreal at Sky Dome last week, registering 6 tackles in the game.
Well, that's the problem with not being positive on first down. Now it allows Toronto to play the blanket zone, drop off, let him complete the ball underneath, come up, make the tackle as O'Shea did there.
3rd down, and Glenn Harper is in. Jimmy the Jet ready to take off at the other end as Donald Smith almost got to the punter. Cunningham from his 30, across the 35, and Jimmy Cunningham's doing it again. No flags, and Cunningham is going to score. Touchdown, Toronto. Well, we talked about it at the outset. Special teams, both clubs have explosive kick returners, and Jimmy Cunningham has scorched Edmonton again.
And I'll tell you, the key to that play was bringing it right up the middle of the field. You talked about the little guys going straight and keeping that low center of gravity. Watch Donald Smith as he closes on Glenn Harper. Right in the corner of your screen, got a crushing blow, just laid out the Edmonton punter. Jimmy Cunningham was off to the races, and they had cleared a path for him, and he took it to the house.
Little snow angel in the end zone, and a touchdown converted. And the Toronto Argonauts have their first lead of the evening. Only stadium in Canada where the fans are as tough as the players on the field. You have to be tough in these conditions, but they're being treated to an exceptional first half, and Jimmy Cunningham with the 80-yard punt return, and he excelled in both regular season games against Edmonton and doing it again.
You know, he's such an outstanding athlete, but Daryl Adrellin is the architect of the special teams for Toronto, and he makes sure that he puts the best athletes that he can on his team.
Short kick on the turf, and now Gizmo. And he is nailed by Michael O'Shea at the 32-yard line. So Jimmy Cunningham is going into the record books, not with the longest, but the second longest punt return in CFL history.
You know, I was talking with Jimmy Cunningham. He idolizes Terry Metcalf. Terry Metcalf plays with the Baltimore Ravens of the NFL. His dad, Terry Metcalf, played in Toronto. But watch this tremendous block that you're going to get by Donald Smith. This is what you have to do when you play on special teams. You have to hustle all the way through. It's going to be on the left part of your screen. Glenn Harper never sees this knockout shot. Freeze it right there.
First down, Edmonton. Eric Blunt, and he is met by a swarm of Argonauts. Rob Waldrop in the middle of it. And so Blunt unable to get positive yardage. Glenn Harper shaking away the cobwebs after taking the big hit.
Here's the Harper shot right in the middle of your screen. He never saw him coming. Textbook block by Donald Smith. Daryl Adrellin said he has the luxury that no other coach on this coaching staff has, is that he has 36 players to pick from when he's choosing his team, and everyone else only has 16.
Just past the 4-minute mark of the second quarter. Danny McManus has outshone his counterpart, but finds himself down by a point as he delivers the high pass, incomplete. Donald Smith knocked the ball out of the grasp of Nick Mazzoli.
Once again, this is a result of a negative play on first down. They have to be very positive on first down, keep themselves in the second median situation so they know they're going to get man. Here, it's a blanket zone, and he has to force the football downfield. Mazzoli almost makes a great catch.
Now, David, when you get in situations like this and you got the bad weather, what would be a perfect play to call on first down?
Well, I think you go to the short passes. You try to get the running game. If the running game's bogging down, then you go to some short passes. Get your running backs involved. Dump the ball off your running backs. Keep some people coming in underneath. Throw the underneath routes. Keep yourself in a second medium situation. Throw the ball on first down.
Jet ready again. Harper kicks away from Cunningham this time. And out of bounds, and the Argo fans are on Harper after a 29-yard punt. After the first meeting between these two teams, in which Cunningham continually hurt Ron Lancaster's team, he said he had a little star on the punt return video, but they still have not been able to corral the Jets, so perhaps they're going to just kick away the rest of the afternoon. Here's Flutie, second time he's called his number, and Doug Flutie has the Argos back in Edmonton territory, 16 yards. 30 yards for Flutie on the day on the ground, and Glenn Rogers with the tackle.
And that goes back to what David was talking about, picking up positive yardage on first down. Doug did the proper thing, keeping it on the ground. Right now, the defensive players have the unsure footing. He goes straight ahead, and once again, he has the 1st and 10.
That is the element that the Argos have that Edmonton doesn't. McManus will not run very often. Flutie guns it over the middle. It's complete, and there he is again. Jimmy Cunningham has been a big story for Toronto in the first half.
And David, they've put him in at the slot, and that gives him a closer path between he and Doug Flutie. He doesn't have to look over those big defensive backs trying to find him out on the corner.
Well, a lot of times on your team, your weaker defenders are your halfbacks. Now you got one of your big play people locked on halfbacks, although Darian Hagan, a good cover guy. The thing that's happening up front is Toronto is sorting out some of the problems that Edmonton was presenting for him early in the game with the pass rush, really starting to give Doug time to throw.
16-yard pickup for Cunningham. He has 42 in the game, and the football at the Edmonton 28. Over the middle it goes. Mazzotti with the catch, and Willie Pless wrestles him down.
The crossing routes have always been a mainstay of this Argo offense, and what they're doing is that they have the wideouts running off the corners and the halfbacks, and they're bringing the wideout underneath, and that's what Mazzotti did. After the clear out had come, the linebackers had gone in their drop. He was wide open.
Yeah, I think Mazzotti is a guy that you would like doing that because he understands coverage extremely well, finds the open area, and gets there.
And you see his numbers. For the 3rd consecutive year, he's had over 1,000 yards receiving.
3 on the pickup for Mazzotti in his 9th year with the Argos. 2nd and 7. Rush on. Flutie slings that one. Sidearm. Was looking for Tyrone Williams. First time he's called Williams' number today, but it's incomplete.
Tyrone Williams only had 1 reception last week in the game versus Montreal. He had 60 on the regular season. Really the first full season that Tyrone Williams has played since he left Western Ontario in 1991, and it was a good season. He had 800 yards in reception yardage.
Old teammate of Dave Sapungis at the University of Western Ontario. And now they clear some snow and try and improve the footing for Mike Vanderjagt.
You know, Tyrone Williams also playing in his 2nd consecutive Grey Cup. He played last year with Calgary and hoping to get a ring here this year with Toronto.
This is a 32-yard attempt for Vanderjagt. And he's got that one. So Mike Vanderjagt is 2 for 2 with family and friends looking on. And with 7:51 to play in the first half at Ivor Wynne. Welcome back to Ivor Wynne. Chris Cuthbert with James Curry and David Archer. Nice of the guys downstairs in the heated truck to let us wear our coats for this. It looks like the Argo offense is heating up.
Well, they're starting to hit on all cylinders. Doug Flutie is just a marvelous quarterback, and operating in field conditions like this, he's averaged 33 points a game during his playoff career, so he knows how to play in inclement weather.
13-9 Toronto. 7:51 to go, first half. And after the Vanderjagt field goal, the Eskimos will scrimmage from their own 35.
You know, people have talked about the weather so much, and it is a bad day, but look at the people in the crowd. The people of Hamilton should be extremely proud of the show they put on this week. It's been a great crowd.
Now, Dave, this is the point that you talked about, that Danny McManus needs to pick up that 4 and 5 on first down.
Eskimos 2 and out their last 2 possessions. McManus guns it downfield. Jim Sandusky, and he will score. How about that? $75 yards for 35-year-old Jim Sandusky.
Chris, he had his playoff coming out party versus Winnipeg when he scored the big 3 touchdowns in that game. Last week, only 1 reception versus Calgary, but now he exploits the Toronto secondary and Donald Smith for a quick 6 on first down, and Donald Smith is down on the play, possibly pulled a hamstring.
Well, it's a situation where Sandusky just goes straight up the seam, probably a clearing pattern, but he was so clean that Danny tried to get the ball to him. The free safety did not play the ball. He played the receiver. The ball went right by the free safety. Sandusky, smart receiver, makes the play.
And Don Matthews talked a lot about his free safety, Lester Smith. Said he was a great run support free safety. But now we see what Danny McManus has checked him out in the back end to see can he support on the pass. That time he didn't get over in time. He knocked off the corner Smith. Sandusky kept running.
Don Matthews was the man who signed Jim Sandusky in Othello, Washington 11 years ago. It was a great idea until Sandusky caught that pass.
And you talked to Don and asked him, was he surprised to see Jim Sandusky playing as well 11 years later as he did when he signed him? And he was original member of the BC Lions. If you recall, in the 1985 Grey Cup, he had a great game where he took a long pass about 76 yards for a touchdown in that game versus Hamilton.
Well, this play was a situation where they had a stack with Darren Flutie and Jim Sandusky. Sandusky, tremendous concentration, and there's the collision between the 2 Smiths, and it looked like Donald took the worst of the shot.
Chris, we had a conversation a few weeks ago with Ron Lancaster out in Edmonton, and he talked about the moves that Huey Campbell taught him how to make as a coach. You look at situations, you think about it, you don't do anything too drastically, too fast. You take your time, and you figure out what's best for the ball club. And a lot of concern was thought about when he made the move with Shalon Baker. But everything has worked out right for the Eskimos with Jim Sandusky in the lineup.
What did Ron Lancaster say? Why did you make the move? He said, I was playing a hunch, and how that hunch has played out for the Eskimos. 3 touchdowns 2 weeks ago, and now a major score in the Grey Cup game And some important points for Edmonton because all the momentum had been going Toronto's way.
Well, the touchdown as a result of...
Not his first Grey Cup touchdown, so let's go back to 1985. There's Roy DeWalt playing against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Jim Sandusky. A play not unlike the one this afternoon.
Rufus Best was covering him on the play, and Roy DeWalt had a couple of players in the lineup that game, Ned Armour and Kelly Sims in the backfield to replace Keevan Jenkins and Merv Fernandez in that game. But Jim Sandusky showing he still has the wheels to 9 years later to take it all the way. His longest Grey Cup touchdown.
His 8-year-old son, Rocky, watching at home. And thumbs up back home after that. Rocky was giving him a little heat earlier in the year. Only had one regular season touchdown, and he'd asked Dad a couple of times, where are all the touchdowns? But Dad's answered back in recent weeks.
I think the way that he has exploded in the playoffs, now his 4th of the postseason, an outstanding second part of the season for Jim Sandusky.
16-13 Edmonton as Sean Fleming kicks it off. And Mike Clements from his own 15. And Clements is nailed. That's Trent Brown. 20-yard return.
Now, David, what do you do after someone has struck you for quick 6? How do you respond offensively in this scenario?
Well, Doug's personality is to attack, and he'll immediately come out and do the things they were being successful with. They've gotten down into what they call the green zone, the 20-yard line in, and not been able to punch it in. But it's important for them to come out and get a positive drive here, reestablish what they had going in the last 2 drives offensively.
Well, the long ball has hurt the Argos. 64 yards to Brown, 75 yards to Sandusky. And now a handoff to Drummond. And Robert Drummond has not been a major part of the Argo offense so far this afternoon. He was the dominant player the last 2 weeks, James.
Well, he had an outstanding game. If you recall, last week coming out of the backfield, he had 7 receptions, and he carried the ball 8 times for 44 yards. But that was also on a dry track at Sky Dome. Now with the footing not as good, and Robert Drummond is a very upright runner. So on a slippery surface like this, he'll be having a footing problem, and he also has his shoes spatted, so he also loses traction from that.
Just 2 for Drummond, so from the 37, 2nd and 8. Flutie steps out of the pocket and just got it away. Mazzotti into the open field. Paul Mazzotti nailed at the Eskimo 45. But Doug Flutie got that away just in the nick of time as Willie Pless was converging.
Well, Mazzotti comes from the short side of the field and just drags across. We saw Mazzotti catch it earlier against the zone. This time he sees his quarterback get flushed out and is there to help him out. Pless is right there to make the play, but Mazzotti continues with his quarterback.
What happens is that those clear-out routes, what we talked about earlier, where the linebackers have dropped deep. Willie Pless was playing a spy technique, but Dixon and Hunter had dropped deep, and it allowed Mazzotti to clear underneath and pick up the first down, and you can see him limping after the play.
So Mazzotti is on the sidelines. First down Argos, 5:15 to go, first half. Flutie in trouble, down he goes. Derek McCready with his 2nd sack of the game.
Had talked with Ronnie Lancaster about Derek McCready. He said he had always wanted Derek McCready. He had played so many games against Derek, but Derek had a lot of seasons where he didn't make it through the season. And you talk with the defensive personnel, the players on the defensive side of the ball for Edmonton, and they said that Derek McCready was the most inspirational player on their defense this year because he was happy every day he came to work, and you can see it in the 84th Grey Cup.
Argos with 39 yards and team losses. 2nd down and 20. Flutie can't find anybody open. He'll look again. Downfield, and there's a strike to Mazzotti. Paul Mazzotti back off the bench, off the limp, and a big play for the Argos.
You think he might have been playing possum, David?
This is a situation where a veteran quarterback scrambles, you got a veteran receiver. Here Mazzotti just running a clear route, and he sees his quarterback in trouble, so he floats back to the inside, finds the open area, and then Doug, always looking for something to happen downfield, makes it happen with
This is what we talk about in the Flutie factor. This is what Doug can do. He can extend plays up to 5 and 6 seconds, and when you allow that to occur, defensive backs cannot cover your receivers.
Mazzotti back down again, but 4 catches, 79 yards. Here's Flutie, rolling right. Has Jimmy Cunningham inside the 5. Cunningham drilled out of bounds, lost the football, but a 15-yard pickup, and the Argos knocking at the door. Trent Brown, the man who forced Cunningham out of touch.
Well, once again, this is a situation where Doug gets flushed out. They wanted to run their little pitch play inside the pinball, but Mal Hunter disrupted it, so Flutie continued outside, and Cunningham saw his quarterback again in trouble and came back and made the play for him.
And it goes back to the sure footing of the short receivers, where they have that low center of gravity, and they really don't have those long strides. They're skating across the top of this snow, and they're beating the defensive backs to the spots in the zone.
Jed Roberts racing off the field. 3:10 left, first half. And the football on the Edmonton 4-yard line. Drummond now the lone setback. Takes the handoff, and a big initial hit by Glenn Rogers Jr.
You know, one of the things about this Eskimo defense, inside the 5, they're very tough.
3-minute warning being given to both benches in a super first half of the 84th Grey Cup game. Well, the snow getting heavier as it blows in off Hamilton Bay. Argos threatening to get into the end zone again. Are looking at a 2nd and goal from the 2.
And this has turned into a snow track meet almost. It's been back and forth. Both offenses have really gone out and tried to create the big plays. Danny McManus to Eddie Brown and Jim Sandusky, and Flutie, the field general, marching back and forth, picking up the 7-8 yards, going to getting 15 on first down.
Looks like 2.5 to pay dirt. Drummond again, left side, touchdown, Robert Drummond.
Robert Drummond in his first 2 Grey Cup games for Baltimore started at fullback. Only had 1 carry and 5 receptions. This time getting the ball at the eye. Mike Pringle had been the eye in the previous 2 Grey Cups he had played in. Now he is the featured back. He gets the ball, and he has some big guys up front that know how to clear the way. It's no way of stopping him getting over that stretch, over that goal line for the touchdown.
Drummond used to be a wide receiver, and he said he just was too physical, so they moved him into the backfield. Loves to play the power game, powered it in. Vanderjagt adds the extra point. And in a seesaw battle in the 84th Grey Cup game, the Toronto Argonauts are now back on top. Robert Drummond caps the drive for Toronto after Doug Flutie went 3 for 3 for 79 yards.
Well, you got the big guys up front, and when you got inclement weather like this, you got to be able to reestablish the line of scrimmage, and you can see the drive blocking. Willie Bless, 4-time winner, the outstanding defensive player, just could not get through massive 330-pound Dan Payne on the play.
Vanderjagt has it on the tee as the snow continues to fall in Hamilton. And this is Gizmo Williams. Henry Williams with a crease, and now he'll get outside over midfield. Henry Williams. Vanderjagt tried to track him down, won't do it. Gizmo scores. Well, we saw the second-year man, Jimmy Cunningham. Now we see the greatest kick returner in football history. Henry Williams answers back.
Shades of the 90s, 87 Grey Cup at BC Place versus Toronto when he returned a missed field goal back for the touchdown. This time, Henry Williams answered Robert Drummond's call. And has there ever been a more exciting kick returner? You talk about what he's taken to the house. He's had 19 punt returns called back over his career at an estimated 3,500 yards. And if you had added that to his total, just think of how far he would be away from everybody in the history of football.
Here's a guy that at the start of the year wasn't in the lineup for the Eskimos.
Well, the beauty of the Giz is to go straight ahead. And what he does, he sets all his blocks up. Then he finds the crease and gets to the outside, and all he had to do was outrun the kicker for the touch.
David, if you think about it, he probably had the largest play in that Calgary game last week when he returned that missed field goal back out to midfield.
Had a 50-yard return or a 51-yard return against Calgary that's really changed up the field position situation.
Changed the momentum, got him in field goal range for Sean Fleming to kick another field goal. But once again, Henry Williams, we talked about earlier, players taking it straight up the field, and those players with that low center of gravity and that short stride, Gizmo explodes.
91-yard kickoff return for Gizmo Williams, and it's the fourth lead change of the first half.
Well, watch the Giz set up his blocks. All he does is get straight up the field, allows his people to get locked, and now Giz does what he does best, and that's with speed. Gets to the outside, and the kicker's not going to run him down.
David, as a quarterback, would you consider this being your best offensive weapon, sitting there watching your special teams back and forth up and down the field?
I'll tell you, this is beautiful. The crowd couldn't ask for more, and as a quarterback, you know you don't have to drive the ball 70 yards for a score. Giz makes it happen in about 10 seconds.
I guess take a bow. That is a new Grey Cup record. The Argos, on the strength of the Rockets' return in '91, won the Grey Cup.
You know, in this game, it has gone completely opposite of what anyone had ever expected. Everyone was thinking possibly a low-scoring affair with all the snow on the field, but this has been nothing less than a spectacular first half of football.
Remember, we're just in the first half. 2:29 to play. Mike Clements. You know what he did last week? And Clements with a good return. Don Blair, Tony Burse push him out. Well, James, good memory, 87. Why don't we take another look? Missed field goal, and Gizmo went to work.
You look at it, and the key to special teams is guys understanding when you have a player who can take it all the way back, get your blocks. And look who's leading him, Don Wilson, who now plays for Toronto, but Henry Williams, such an explosive player. He's done it from the start, and he's continued throughout his CFL career.
33 years of age, says he wants to play another year, I guess. Flutie, sidearm, slings it, almost picked off Darian Hagan.
Now, David, that has to be a terrible pass to throw out in the flat. It's so dangerous out there at this point in the game.
Well, this is certainly a pressure situation. Willie Pless comes clean up through the middle. You'll see Willie coming clean right up in Doug's face, and it doesn't allow Doug to really step in and throw the ball. Darren Hagan rakes on the ball and almost picks it off.
Now, this is where that zone scheme that Edmonton uses up front so effective, because offensive linemen really can't gauge who's going to come and who's going to drop.
And they play so much combination coverage back there, switching people off. They like to call it match coverage, but Doug didn't have a chance to sort it out.
Hagan, the College Player of the Year in 1989, when the quarterback of the University of Colorado. 2nd and 10 for Flutie. Calls his number, and now pitches it out. That went forward. Clements has a first down. So a forward pass from Flutie to Clements, and a first down. A little shuttle pass there that the Argos have utilized a great deal in recent weeks.
I'm not so sure that Doug wasn't past the line of scrimmage on that play, but great execution. Now, Doug, you can't say that you designed this in your playbook, David, where a quarterback shovels the ball with two hands as he's trying to escape the pocket.
That was not a shovel pass. All it was Pinball sitting down underneath the coverage, and Doug got in trouble. He wanted to run the QB draw, but when he got cut off, he knew exactly where Pinball was and shoves the ball out. The Pinball sitting in the flat against the zone.
And I do believe he was over the line of scrimmage because it showed where the ball was, where it was snapped, and he had actually gone past where his offensive linemen were standing. That was an illegal forward pass that was missed by the officials.
Well, we quarterbacks don't ever think we're over the line of scrimmage. He extends an extra 2 or 3 yards for us when we're on the move.
You guys never think you're over the line of scrimmage. You don't want to be hit by defensive linemen. What else you want? You want us to get you a chair to sit in or something?
I'm going to give the officials the benefit of the doubt when you can't see the line of scrimmage. It is at the 46 now of Edmonton. And Flutie fakes the inside toss, goes outside to Drummond. And Robert Drummond turns the corner. And he'll have another first down near the Edmonton 35. Darian Hagan forced him out, but it's a pickup of 11 for Big Drummond.
I tell you, Singo and Mobley made a cardinal sin of all defensive players. You have to force a ball carrier back inside. And you see the defensive front with the 70 sacks. But that time, Mobley, who was a part of that, you have to force him back inside, David, where you have some support.
So true, because Dixon was flowing from the inside. He was the contained man. He needed to force him back in so Dixon could make the play.
The ball's at the Eskimo 35. First down, Toronto. And Flutie underneath to Clements, and he is tripped up immediately. Bruce Dixon, the Hamilton boy, replacing Larry Bruck.
And you think about how special this game is for Bruce Dixon. This is his first start of this season, and it's here at home in Hamilton in the Grey Cup, the biggest game of his career. He spent a lot of time this season rotating in and out with Larry Rupp, but he gets the start today.
Said he plays about 25% of the plays during the course of the year, but the understudy to Larry Ruck is in the hot seat today. 4-yard pickup at 2nd and 6. Flutie steps up again and has room left side, first down, and knocked out of bounds. That's Malcolm Frank, who forced Flutie out of touch.
David, we've seen Jimmy Cunningham catch passes come underneath, but that time he laid a key block for Doug Flutie to get outside.
Well, their receivers do such a good job of going to open areas, it doesn't allow coverage people to come off. And Doug's not being covered by anybody man-to-man, so he just runs up the field. Malcolm Frank finally comes over to make the play, but they're responsible for people downfield.
Adam Reeder, the brain thrust of this Argonaut offense, he gives Flutie the free rein, but they communicate constantly.
The ball's at the 20, 1st and 10 for Toronto with 1:31 to go. Direct snap, Drummond straight up the middle. And Robert Drummond fumbled the football. Let's see. Eskimos say they've got the football. It looks like it's going to remain in the Argos' hands. But Drummond has had trouble holding on, 7 fumbles during the season.
He has. Late in the season, he had a problem maintaining the football. The past couple of games, he's been able to hold on. The last time these two teams met, if you recall early, he put one on the ground. This one here, he put it down once again, but that time he was able to come up with his own fumble recovery on the play. Willie Pless, the Terminator, inside, plugging the hole, causing the fumble, but Drummond got it back.
Big break for the Argos, 2nd and 2, and Flutie looks like he changed the count with Mike Kislak as he leaned over center. They're letting the clock run here. And the 20-second clock now down to 5. Drummond. And Drummond got near the 10 before he's driven back. I'm not sure.
I don't know if he got that, Chris. It's all going to depend on the spot. But tremendous surge by that Edmonton front 7.
Melvin Hunter had Drummond in his grasp.
Dixon and Mobley on the stop. Move the sticks into
Melvin Hunter, the team's top sacker this year, also plays tough run support defense coming up inside on Robert Drummond, fighting off Pierre Vercheval, and Pierre's a load. He missed the first 16 games of this season with a broken ankle, but has come back and regained his starting job. Don Matthews believes you can't lose your job because of an injury.
It is first down. First and goal from inside the 10, Flutie. And that one incomplete. Good coverage there.
This is a good read by the defenders for Edmonton. They're playing a 2-man game with Cunningham and Mazzotti. Mazzotti runs in behind Cunningham, and Malcolm Frank actually turns his coverage loose and sits to the outside. Just sitting down in the zone. The ball's thrown. Had he not gotten his hands on it, you see Malcolm Frank almost comes up with the interception. There's a little bit of guessing going on. These two guys, Rogers and Malcolm Frank, play extremely well together.
Now, David, isn't this the point where Doug Flutie has the larger advantage over any other quarterback in the league with his mobility?
Well, I think he adds so much more of being able to run around.
2nd and goal. And Flutie's going to do just that, and he'll score. Touchdown, Doug Flutie. Four carries, 50 yards in this first half for the five-time outstanding player in the Canadian Football League.
Well, this is what Doug Flutie has always brought to the plate, is his athleticism. Don Matthews stated that Doug Flutie runs about a 4.5 40. But not only that he has great lateral and forward movement, he sees the field so well. Once he saw that all his options with his receivers had been taken up, he just tucked it and walked in for 6.
Vanderjagt, and he does get the extra point. 27-23. What a first half in the 84th Grey Cup game.
Doug Flutie has always said that he has a tremendous amount of feeling and tremendous amount of anticipation with some of his reads that he makes with the receivers downfield, but he feels like when things begin to struggle, he'll take the load on his own shoulders and run with the ball himself. He says sometimes he takes too much of that load, but here obviously he benefited his ball club.
Well, you talked about his offensive lineman earlier and said he makes that job so much easier. And it really does, because he has that escape ability that most quarterbacks don't possess. And he has that flat-out foot speed. And when you got the secondary dropping off, he found Edmonton that time playing man defense in the back end. And what happens is everyone has their back turned towards him. So it's very easy for him to pick up that 10 yards for 6.
Well, a record-setting night in many ways. We've had a long punt return for a touchdown by Cunningham, the longest kickoff return by Gizmo Williams, and 27 second quarter points. 27-23.
50 points in the first half of the 84th Grey Cup, Chris. Who would have ever thought it?
And the guy was picking 44 points total in the game.
Well, you always been conservative. You think hockey that 1-1 is a high-scoring contest, you know.
Now this has been an amazing first half. Not done yet. 40 seconds to go, and Gizmo Williams is getting set.
David, what do you do with 40 seconds and you get the ball if you're Edmonton trailing by 4? Do you kill it, or do you try to get some points going into the locker room at halftime?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on what kind of return they get here. If they get a good positive return, I think you immediately go on the attack and try to make something happen. Certainly get yourself in position to get 3.
You got Giz back, and Eric Blunt. You know, we haven't heard much from Eric, but last year Eric led the league in all-purpose yards per game at 286, and is a great kick returner to complement Henry Williams.
Vanderjagt into the driving snow, and Gizmo on one hop. And he'll plunge to the 30. So not great field position.
And David, this is what you talked about. It's not great field position. You want to play conservatively right here.
Well, I think you come out and you still throw the football, but you give yourself an opportunity to complete the ball underneath, get something positive. If you don't, you're in trouble.
Well, in the booth, Dave Sapunjas, Kent Austin, and I are marveling at the performance of Doug Flutie here in the second quarter. Here's what's coming up at halftime. The Nylons will perform live at Ivor Wynne Stadium. We'll have lots of highlights to discuss and some in-depth analysis from David Sapunjas and Kent Austin, our game day guests. Chris?
35 seconds away. Let's find out what the Eskimos plan to do with that time. Out of the shotgun, McManus goes back to work. That's Blunt. And can't break the tackle. Sure-handed play there by Reggie Givens, who's had an outstanding year for the Argos at 3 different positions.
And David, this is one of the things that has plugged Edmonton this year, is that they've had so many second and longs instead of the second and shorts. And that causes your offense a lot of problems.
It really does. Now Danny's in a situation where he probably will try to milk the clock as much as he can, make something positive happen, but make sure they don't give up any points.
Second and long. McManus, a lot of steamboats. Now gets rid of it. There's Sandusky. And Jim Sandusky's on the Argos side of half. Wrestled down there by Ed Barry. But there are still some options left. 7 seconds on the clock. So they need to run one play if they're to get into Sean Fleming field goal range.
David, what do you throw in this scenario? And you need to pick up about 10.
Well, I think I would burn the timeout to make sure I don't lose any time, but obviously Danny's ready to go, so you got to keep the ball underneath.
And McManus quickly gets it away, and 1 second left on the clock as the catch is made by Darren Flutie, who has had a quiet first half.
Now they have to go to Sean Fleming here. Now his longest field goal last week versus Calgary was 40 yards. Similar type situation, icy surface, so it's going to be very important that they can get enough snow moved out of the way so he can get his footing down and get that plant foot in to get that leg swing and try to get in. It's going to be about a 45-yarder right here.
Maybe as much as 47.
I think they'll take their time out and give themselves some time to get the field clear here. This is what I thought Danny, the reason I was saying take the time out before Danny completed the underneath pass, and he did a great job of clock management there. A lot of times you see quarterbacks lose time, and if he lost a second, they wouldn't even have this attempt. But Danny did a good job of getting his people distributed, got the ball downfield, another 5 to give him a little bit better opportunity.
Timeout was called by Edmonton. Sean Fleming's longest of the year, 51 yards, and this looks like it'll be from 47. Does have the wind at his back.
And you think back to that 1993 Grey Cup, his long in that game was 52 yards, and he was 6 of 7.
Trying to get the Eskimos within 1 through one half of play. Got plenty of distance, but misses. Cunningham now will lug it out, trip up around the 5-yard line, and that'll do it for the first half. Wow. What a first half it was. Danny McManus warming up. It's interesting to note that he outpassed Doug Flutie in both of the regular season games, passing yardage-wise, and he did in the first half. But like the regular season, he's on the losing end so far.
Well, McManus did the things that we thought he needed to do. He needed to take care of the football and distribute it, get everybody involved, and he got everybody involved. The touchdown to Eddie Brown, the touchdown to Jim Sandusky. Darren Flutie's only caught 2 balls in the first half. I think that benefits him.
Well, we got to look at the halftime numbers where Edmonton is leading in the total yards, the net yards. No turnovers, and that's surprising in weather conditions such as this. This is Don Matthews' 4th Grey Cup as a head coach. He has never trailed going into halftime, and so this is a common situation for him to be in. You see his team rallying right there. He's giving his halftime speech. Ronnie Lancaster has his team within 4 points. Let's look for a big outburst here in the second half. Let's get a recap, Chris.
Wow, so many big plays to talk about in the first half. You saw the brilliant catch by Eddie Brown, a punt return touchdown by Jimmy Cunningham, the bomb to Sandusky, Gizmo Williams, and a record-tying 27 second quarter points by the Toronto Argonauts, who lead by 4 as we get set to start the third quarter. Should Edmonton fans be concerned that Darren Flutie wasn't really in the offensive mix in the first half?
To be honest with you, I think it's a positive because Danny has had to go to some other players. He's had to get Eddie Brown involved. He's had to get Jim Sandusky involved. He's dropped the ball off to his backs a few times. Now all of a sudden the Toronto defense is saying, hey, wait a minute. Darren Flutie is not the featured guy. We got to defend everybody else. Now Darren becomes more of a factor in the second half.
Let's go back down to field level. Here's Mark.
Don, tell me what you said at halftime to your players.
Well, you know, we gave up 2 plays on defense, 1 on special teams. Other than that, we had them under good control. Our offense is moving the ball. Don't give up any more big plays. Let's win the game.
I understand you didn't want a 40-minute half in order to clean the field.
No, I want to play the game.
All right, Don, good luck. Don Matthews, up to you, Chris.
And we're glad they made that decision because there's nothing wrong with the way this game's going.
No, it's been a great game. Keep the flow going. And just to touch on something that David said, they got Eddie Brown involved early. They really haven't seen much of Eric Blunt and Darren Flutie. You know he's always there and dangerous.
Edmonton won the toss to start the game. They deferred, so they'll have the wind in the fourth quarter at their backs, but they do kick it off. And the Argos will have the ball. And it's picked up by Michael O'Shea, and the former Tiger Cat. Pretty good return by O'Shea, who has heard the cat calls of angry Tiger Cat fans, and you can hear the booing as they announce his name. A North Bay product who agonized over the decision to sign with the Argos. In fact, North Bay was a territorial protected area of the Tiger Cats, so he grew up a Cats fan. The old Hamilton teams used to have training camp in North Bay. A tough decision, but here he is in the Grey Cup game.
It was a very emotional decision when he did sign with the Argos, a hated rival for years, but he wanted to come to the Grey Cup, and he has arrived.
Let's see if Flutie can stay hot as he was in the second quarter. First play of the third quarter, and he pulls it down, and Doug Flutie scrambling again. Malcolm Frank got a piece of him as Flutie downed about a yard short of a first down, and he is flexing his muscles in this one.
Well, he's calling for his big group to come in a short yardage situation, but this is a play Willie Pless is going to have to make for Edmonton on defense. They're rushing four-man. They're having combination coverage downfield. Willie's sitting in the middle spying. He just doesn't get over to make the play.
The point I want to touch on is what Ken Austin spoke about at halftime. The uneven rush lanes by Edmonton's front seven. When you have those huge gaps and you have defensive linemen rushing on planes, different levels, 2 and 3 yard separation.
Second less than a yard, close to midfield. And Big Drummond right side, and a lot more than the first down as he went across the 45, put the ball on the ground, but the whistle had blown.
Normally you have to be touched when you hit the ground for the ball to be dead at that spot. I'm not so sure that Robert Drummond got touched, but it was a great effort by the Big Horse to pick up the first down on the short yardage play. The offensive line has been really establishing the line of scrimmage today. Looked like he might not have got touched. He hurdled that defensive back, and that should have been a fumble. Malcolm Frank comes in. Well, he did make contact, so it is the good call by the officials.
13-yard gain. Drummond has let it slip out of his hands twice, and you saw Flutie go over to remind him. And the direct snap to Drummond again. And Robert Drummond has another first down to the Eskimo 30. So the Argos marching on their opening possession of the third quarter. Leroy Blue, Willie Pless with the tackle, but now Drummond has 7 carries and 42 yards and a touchdown in the game.
He picked up 44 last week versus Montreal, so he's well on pace to eclipse that here in the Grey Cup.
First down, Argos. Another direct snap, Drummond. And this time, the door is closed. Derek McCready, Malvin Hunter.
Well, this time Edmonton commits a couple of linebackers into the play to disallow the running lanes. He had some good running lanes with a 4-man rush. Now the linebackers get involved, and now you got 6 across the front. No place for him to slide to, and they come up and make a play on a short gain.
David, I'll also tell you what these 2 direct snaps for Drummond has done. It has now forced Edmonton to play more discipline up front in their pass rush. You saw a lot of twisting and gambling in the first half. Now they have to stay in their lanes. Look for Doug Flutie to have more time in the pocket.
2nd and 7. Everybody out for Doug Flutie, and the rush is on. And Flutie across his body throws the strike, and it's Paul Mazzotti with another catch, and Mazzotti has been an effective outlet receiver for Flutie so far. And again, Mazzotti slow to get up. 5th catch, 91 yards.
And Trent Brown came up and laid a tremendous hit on Paul Mazzotti. Trent Brown came in the training camp this year. Last year he had gained a starting position, came back this year. Once he saw that the ratio would be adjusted, he wasn't assured that he'd have a starting job. But Ronnie Lancaster assured him it was his job to lose, and Trent Brown has held on to that free safety position for Edmonton and has had a tremendous season, one of the best hitting free safeties in the CFL.
Well, the thing I marvel about the wide receivers for Toronto is how well they adjust to Doug moving around in the pocket or escaping out of the pocket. Most teams have a scramble rule where they'll go with their quarterback. The receivers will go with their quarterback to help him out. And it seems like almost inevitably he finds Mazzotti, who seems to sit it down every time for him and finds an open area.
Well, Paul Mazzotti, we saw him limping in the first half. He had a leg injury, and now he's being helped off once again.
You know, Dave Sapunjas can attest to this. A lot of talk about what kind of team guy Doug Flutie is. Well, here's an indication of the type of guy he is. He drives a long way to get a satellite dish to bring back to Arundel College. Now, he's a big money quarterback. David Archer might buy a satellite dish for his teammates too, but he spends 8 hours one day on an off day setting the thing up. So his teammates can enjoy the benefits of a satellite dish during the year. He's a guy that certainly won over the support of his teammates throughout this year.
I didn't realize he was an electronics engineer.
Well, it took him 8 hours.
Oh, okay.
First down, Argos marching. And a wide open receiver, and Cunningham dropped the ball. Incomplete. It ended up back in his hands, but it did hit the snow as Kavis Reed was closing, but something happened. David, there was a breakdown in the secondary.
Well, certainly a blown coverage, and Senior Mobley was supposed, it looks like, based on what Kavis Reed is saying on the field, that he expected Mobley to come over and help him out. Hagan jams and lets him go, and there's nobody there in the scene.
What they were doing, David, was running a cut there. Hagan was going to the flat, and he was expecting Trent Brown to come over the top, and Trent wasn't there, and he was wide open. He just couldn't hold on to the football.
2nd and 10 from the 16. Flutie calls his own number again, straight up the middle. He's near the 10. And that's short of the first down.
Now, this is the point on the field where it may be a little too far to gamble, but this is what was set up by the direct snaps to Robert Drummond. Hopefully that they catch Edmonton gambling up front once again, but that time they stayed at home. The linebackers didn't get deep drops, and they stopped him short of the first down.
So Mike Vanderjagt comes on. He'll attempt a 16-yard field goal. And again, a little housekeeping.
And Doug Flutie is down there cleaning off the turf for Mike Vanderjagt, making sure that his kicker has sure footing on his plant foot.
Vanderjagt is 3 for 3. And the Argos lead now is a converted touchdown. Less than 5 minutes gone in the third quarter. That snowy Ivor Wynne. Well, there are the brothers Flutie. Doug Flutie, 7 carries, 60 yards rushing, 201 yards passing in the game. Darren Flutie, just a couple of catches and 21 yards so far, and it'll be interesting to see, David, if they can get him on track in the second half.
No, he's always looming, Chris. He's made so many plays against teams in these weather conditions. He's always there.
So the Eskimos start at their own 35. And here's the give inside. Eric Blunt, the ball carrier, and he's up close to the 40. And we talked about that in the first half. Eskimos are looking to get 4 to 5 yards on first down.
It has made things much easier for Danny McManus. He spent the most part of this year, and that's led to 27 interceptions on the season. But when you have a second and medium, second and short, it gives him a lot more options and makes him more comfortable in the pocket.
2nd and 6. Good protection and a strike. And Darren Flutie has his first catch of this second half. Michael O'Shea, the middle linebacker, taking Flutie to the snow.
And that's a direct reflection of that second and medium. Now, that's what Darren Flutie is so effective, because he loves to work underneath. He does a great job of reading the zone coverage. Knows all he has to do is break it off inside. The only thing is there is the linebackers. You got to duck a little quicker, because Michael O'Shea will take your head off.
Well, he's got a good protection. There's Donnie Wilson coming off the side. They actually had man coverage there, and he got 2 clearing routes. And Darren does such a great job of setting it down.
At the 49 of Edmonton, first down, McManus, another strike, and there is Darren Flutie into Argo territory. What were you saying, Dave?
Well, this time he gets a zone, and we always know that he's there. They're so concerned now with making sure they defend the field, because he got Eddie Brown involved. He got Jim Sandusky involved in the first half. Now Darren reads the zone. This is an option route for him. He finds a little crease and gets in the hole.
And David, what has happened is you have 2 halfbacks playing on this side of the field now. Marcelo Simmons has come in for Donald Smith on the corner, who went out on that Jim Sandusky touchdown, and now you have 2 halfbacks playing out in the flat.
First down at the Argo 45. Again, well, the protection was good, but McManus nailed. Ball is whistled dead, but Danny McManus sacked for the first time today.
And that was a coverage sack on that play. They rolled up the coverage, David.
Yeah, they rolled up the coverage to Darren Flutie's side, Jim Sandusky's side. This is what they were so effective with against Calgary, just running a stack over there and letting those two guys go to work. Now, Tony Burst leaks out of the backfield. He replaces the linebacker. If the linebacker gets too much width, he's supposed to dump it off there. Danny didn't find him.
And look who showed up on the sack, Don Wilson. I mean, this guy has played in 2 Grey Cups with Edmonton, 2 with Toronto, and looking to collect his 4th Grey Cup ring tonight.
Loss of 7, 2nd and 17. McManus over the middle, Eddie Brown. And Brown at the 35-yard line is close to a first down. And that should move the sticks.
Well, you want to talk about a big-time throw right here. This is an anticipation throw. He's anticipating Eddie Brown getting in the hole for him versus a zone coverage, 3-man rush. Watch Eddie float right in behind Donnie Wilson, and it couldn't have been a better thrown football. Danny really stuck that one.
And Ronnie Lancaster spoke about his quarterback throwing on time, and then when your offensive line gives you the time and you believe that your receiver will be there, you just let it fly with confidence.
Ball at the Argo 35, first down. Edmonton and Eric Blood straight up the middle, and he's got 5 or 6 more. Looks like he stopped just inside the 30-yard line. Rob Waldrop, defensive tackle who's had an outstanding year, the former Outland Trophy winner out of Arizona, made the tackle. He's going in for elbow surgery following this season.
Danny's calling all the plays for Edmonton. He's got a little wristband that he refers to, and he's getting everybody involved, keeping the run game part of what he wants to do.
He's hit on his last 7 passes, and it's 2nd and 4. McManus looked right, now looks left. Over the middle he goes, and off the hands of Mark Tobert. The ball delivered high and incomplete.
I tell you, that's one that McManus would like back. He had an early check down to Eric Blunt, who was sitting in the flat, neglected to go to him, thought about it a second time, then went deep, and the ball fell incomplete.
And this will set up a 37-yard field goal attempt.
Danny's been gunning it here in the second half. He's wanting to go deep. He's found open receivers. That one got out of his hand just a little too high for Tobert.
So now Fleming will try to master the footing. He has had trouble with it so far today. And he's missed another. And away goes Jimmy Cunningham, and that side of the field opened up and then closed down on a big hit by Tony Burse. Boy, if Burse doesn't make that play, Cunningham's still running. So Sean Fleming is 0 for 3. Well, Scott, squandered points for Jimmy Cunningham, but remember, Sean Fleming now 0 for 3 on the day. Wonder if that Charlie horse is giving him problems. Here's Drummond taking that shovel pass, and Robert Drummond picks his way through a couple of tacklers out to the 35-yard line, and Drummond with the first down for Toronto. And a couple of Argos down. Drummond slow to get up.
Chris Giaskis is the Argonaut who is down on the play, and this would be a trouble spot for Toronto if they lose one of their offensive linemen. Make that Pierre Verchevel, not Giaskis, but Pierre Verchevel, who missed the first 16 games of the season with a broken ankle, and he came back to start the final game and the one playoff game, but he is down on the field being attended to by the medical staff. Dan Payne took 6th place in the 1988 Olympics in Seoul in the heavyweight wrestling division, played with the Saskatchewan Roughriders last year at offensive tackle, will come in and fill in for him.
Well, this would be a tough break for Pierre Verchevel, who has been an unlucky guy as far as being in the right address for a Grey Cup. He was an Edmonton Eskimo just after the Eskimos won the '87 Grey Cup, and then went to Toronto after the Argos won in '91, so he's still looking for his first Grey Cup ring. Mark?
Chris Donald Smith, number 19 for the Argonauts, is trying to stretch out his hamstrings and his calves. He has been cramping all game long. I asked him what his problem was. He said he did not eat enough food for breakfast, so they have been feeding him cookies and a special energy drink here on the bench. He's trying to stay loose, and he'll make a decision in the third quarter as to whether he can return. Chris?
James Curry says send some of those cookies upstairs. Donald Smith will watch to see if he'll return. We're back, and let's find out what happened to Pierre Verchevel, who has left the game. Berchevelle missing most of the years you mentioned, James, with a broken ankle.
Well, on a cutback with Robert Drummond, he was trying to get in the lane and throw a block, and he ended up catching a knee right in the hip. So he ended up with a hip pointer, and those are very sharp pains that you get. And so he had to have some help off the field by the medical staff.
It's 1st and 10, Toronto at their own 35-yard line. Flutie with that quick hitch out to Pinball Clemens. Darian Hagan hanging on. And Clemens tackled from behind. Leroy Blue with great pursuit outside. And Clemens ended up close to the 45-yard line, which would be near a first down. Well, Doug Flutie has, as Dave Sapunja said, been playing Flutie ball in this, well, since the second quarter. And look at that pass distribution.
Well, you know how dangerous Pinball Clemens can be. If you recall, the last time these two teams met, he caught 4 successive passes in the second half.
Second down and a couple for the Argos, and they go to the fullback. Drummond stood up and nailed. No gain on the play. That's a big defensive play for the Eskimos.
You know, when it comes down to trying to pick up yardage on short yardage situations, it comes down to determination. Who's going to get lower than who in the pit? Watch the defensive line of Edmonton get off, come up underneath those big guys from Toronto, get the penetration, and meet Drummond in the backfield. That's how you play football down in the pits. That's where the football games are won and lost.
First punt since the first quarter for Vanderjagt. Gizmo plays it on the hop. And Henry Williams almost turned the corner. That's a big tackle by George Namako, the backup safety, to hold the return to 14 yards after a 42-yard punt. Guys, I'd like to say hi to Joe Woodcock, who's watching in Sarnia today, celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Sarnia Imperials Grey Cup victory. Back then, gate receipts were about $4,200. And he's still a big fan of the league, cheering for Toronto today. But David, he says there's one problem with the CFL, and Ken Austin, I hope you're listening, they just pay those quarterbacks too much money these days.
Well, when you get gate receipts like $4,200, I guess you can't pay the quarterbacks.
Well, anything might be too much for Joe because he played for nothing back in 1936. Here's Danny McManus earning his money with a strike to Darren Flutie, who has his third catch of this third quarter. Ed Berry, the tackle.
This is just Darren Flutie working the middle of the field and trying to find a hole so McManus can get him the ball. He had a hitch and go outside, or a hook and go outside with Don Blair. It didn't materialize, so Danny came back inside, Flutie floating inside and getting open.
You know, one of the things the Edmonton receivers have a great ability to do is to gauge down on their speed so that Danny McManus doesn't have to lead him too far with the football so he can gun it to that particular spot.
3:03 to go, third quarter. Here's Tony Burse off the left side, and he snowplows up to about the 53. Demetrius Maxey, first contact on the big fullback of the Eskimos.
You think about Tony Burse as a power runner, Dave, and you've played with him in San Antonio, but he has Edmonton's longest run from scrimmage this year at 59 yards.
He's got good speed. I'm telling you, he's one of the most versatile players, if not maybe the most versatile player in the league. He plays all special teams. He catches the ball out of the backfield, and if you need a tough yard, you're going to hand him the big 240.
Got 5 that time. 2nd and 5. Short drop. And incomplete as Mark Tolbert, the intended receiver, double-teamed. And that's Johnny Harris, one of 5 members of the Argos defensive unit that was not with Toronto in training camp.
Well, you think about Johnny Harris. He started this year off playing in the Arena Football League before being picked up by Don Matthews. And when Don brought him in, he said this guy was such a great performer in practice, he had to find a way to get him into the lineup. The Calgary game in Alberta was the first game that he had played this year, and he's been a constant contributor, actually filled in for Marcelo Simmons, who's never gotten his job back.
Glenn Harper in to punt on 3rd down with Cunningham back. Cunningham fielding it close to that boundary, and he did step out at the 20 of Toronto. So a nice job by Harper to kick to the sidelines, a 37-yard punt, and a 1-yard return as Don Blair was the man who forced him out. Mark?
Chris, here's the latest from the Argo sick bay. Pierre Vercheval's injury appears worse than a hip pointer. He told me he got kneed in the back and his whole right leg went numb. And he's still trying to get the feeling back.
And that's why Dan Payne is in along that offensive line now for the Argos. Under 2 minutes to go, third quarter. Doug Flutie and the Argonauts leading 30-23. Flutie outside, and the footing was a problem for Robert Drummond that time.
David, the tempo of the offense have not been what they were in the first half here in the third quarter. Would that have something to do with the layoff that they had in the second half? Well, at halftime?
Well, I think it has something to do with what the coaches have said to him in the locker rooms. They talked about the defensive changes they needed to make, take away some of the plays they'd been getting in the early going, and now they're just trying to give away underneath stuff, come up and make tackles.
Quebec City native, graduate of Western Ontario, back in Pierre Vercheval at left guard. 2nd and 10, there's that shovel toss. Drummond kept his footing. Nice job by Drummond to get the first down up at the Argo 39. Last game here in Hamilton for Robert Drummond. He had 176 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns against the Cats.
And I spoke with Robert about that game. He said it was his second best game of the season. His best that came in Winnipeg. But that game couldn't have came at a more important time. He had struggled late in the season. He had a tendency to put the ball on the ground, but he had caught his stride in the final game of the season, and it has carried over in the playoffs and here in the Grey Cup.
19-yard pickup for Drummond. First down. Argos near their 40. And Flutie underneath has another completion to Paul Mazzotti. And he is approaching a 100-yard game. Bruce Dixon the tackle.
And I'll tell you, every time Robert Drummond stays in the backfield, Dave, you can see the difference in the pass rush of the Edmonton Eskimos. They're not as quick in coming off the ball because of that shovel pass with him in there.
They've set that up so they know they have to guard against the shovel pass or the draw play, the direct snap. Great job of protection that time. That time, Signor Mobley came on the blitz from the outside. Willie Pless came over to pick up his coverage. The line slid out and took care of business. Flutie made the completion.
Once again, Mazzotti getting attention. He has 6 catches, 99 yards. 2nd and 1. Drummond will have the first down. And a hard man to bring to the turf. As the clock has run out in this third quarter. And after an explosive first half, just 3 points in the third quarter of play in the 84th Grey Cup game. That was a field goal by Mike Vanderjagt. And after 45 minutes at Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton, the Toronto Argonauts have a 7-point lead on the Edmonton Eskimos. Well, just in there is Dorothy Lancaster, mother of Ron Lancaster, coach of the Edmonton Eskimos. You can't see Ron Lancaster's grandson just alongside Mark Mueller. There's Ron Jr., 4 generations of Lancasters here in Hamilton today. And Ron Jr. monitoring proceedings from the booth up above.
And I tell you how good a teacher that Ronnie Lancaster has been as a quarterback and as a coach. You think about his young grandson, Mark. He knows every player on this Edmonton team by number and name.
We're through 45 minutes here. And the rushing yards, Robert Drummond, a more prominent role in that third quarter.
I think the biggest surprise right there is the rushing stat. We felt like that Edmonton was going to be able to run the football. We needed to know whether Danny Mac was going to show up and play well, and other people were going to step up with him. They certainly have.
Let's go downstairs to Scott.
All right, Chris, the stats show us one very important figure. It would be remiss if we didn't mention the play of Danny McManus. Kent, he's closing in on 300 yards passing, and he's just chipping away.
Well, we've talked a lot about the Toronto offense, and all Danny's done is go out there and has thrown 2 touchdowns and closing in on 300 yards. He's played a great game, one of the better games that I've seen him play in the playoffs.
And Dave, this is the way that Danny Mac seems to play in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, he always does come up with the big games. And you saw the stat also about how he has outpassed Flutie so far this game, which is a surprise since we've talked so much about how Doug is moving the ball. But he is playing an impressive game. He's dumping the ball off when he has to, and he's doing the things.
Yeah, it's in the best interest of one team to outpass the other, it would seem, if you're going to win this Grey Cup. Chris?
I'll take that, Scott. You know, a lot of people have overlooked what Danny McManus has done, especially over the past 2 seasons in the CFL. He is second in completions with 605. He is first in yards passing over the last 2 seasons with 9,080. But he also has one other first that he doesn't want people to know about, 53 interceptions.
You know, the interesting thing about McManus, though, at playoff time, the interception totals just go right down. He averages 1 interception every 2.5 games in the postseason. So just 4 interceptions in 10 playoff games, and he's been mistake-free again today. In fact, this has been a terrific football game for that. No turnovers and only 4 penalties on a snowy day in Hamilton, which is pretty impressive football through 45 minutes.
Well, we've got 1 quarter to play, and there will be a turnover in this game that's going to play a prominent role before it's all over with.
David, as a quarterback, how difficult was it to handle the football in the cold weather like this?
Well, in this situation, what you want to do as a quarterback is keep your hands warm. That's obviously why Doug has gone, or keep them dry. That's why he's gone to the gloves, and keep the torso warm, and you'll be fine.
So the Argos with a first down at their own 52-yard line. Flutie, that little shovel toss back inside Drummond. And Robert Drummond works his way down to the Edmonton 43. Willie Pless, Trent Brown there to make the tackle.
You talk to all coaches, regardless of where you play football at, and they'll always talk about how important the running game is at this time of the year, when you got the bad weather, when you got the wet field, when you have the snowy surface. Robert Drummond has taken control of this football game on the ground tonight.
And that's exactly what the shovel pass is a run. They're getting great blocks from their guards.
Another first down. Drummond told me he wanted this to become a power game. That's when he would be at his best. Now he takes the swing pass out of the backfield. And Drummond down near the Edmonton 35. Cavis Reed out on the corner with the tackle.
You know, one of the things that they have done in stretching this Edmonton defense from sideline to sideline is taking Willie Pless out of the game. Willie Pless, second in the CFL and third in the CFL in tackles this year, the all-time leading tackler. And you look at Drummond's stats this afternoon, catching the ball. He had 7 receptions last week versus Montreal, but he had the big one, if you recall, Chris, when he tight-roped down the sideline, and he had that 33-yard reception, and he has 5 in tonight's game for 64 yards.
114 all-purpose yards for Robert Drummond so far. 2nd and 4, and it's Flutie turning the corner and getting the first down. Well, the Eskimo defense wanted the opportunity to get a shot in on Flutie.
Well, they've been feeding Drummond on the short yardage play the whole game, and here Doug just pulls it out. Fakes it, and he's got a couple people in front of him. As you see, they're pulling the backside in to get in front of him and get him a block.
Trent Brown had to close from his free safety position to make the stop on the play, but he had pulled Reggie Givens, a backup linebacker who had came in, or the linebacker who came in as a backup tight end on the play.
Flutie 68 yards rushing. Now looks over the middle. Oh, almost a great catch by Cunningham, but another drop.
Well, Jimmy's had a couple in his hands that he felt like he could get, and this one gets away from him too. It's a little high throw, but he'd probably be the first guy to tell you I should have come down with that.
Well, Doug Flutie's in pretty nice company, isn't he? As he has passed Ron Lancaster on the all-time Grey Cup list with his performance this afternoon.
And I tell you, that group of 5 right there has ignited a lot of hearts in the CFL over the years and sent a lot of joy to a lot of fans.
You could have a pretty fair debate about who's the best amongst those 5. Flutie calls his own number. Once again, Doug Flutie taking a pounding, but getting down to the 21. Derek McCready got the first hit. There's Bernie Filoni, a hero here at Ivor Wynne.
Well, they're getting back down again to the scoring zone, and they have a tremendous feel for what Edmonton wants to do in that zone in the field. Flutie knows they're going to play some coverages that are going to turn the backs of the linebackers, get the safeties involved, splitting the field, and he's going to take advantage and run himself.
But I tell you what's so important, Dave, is that when they've gotten down there, is that Edmonton hasn't folded the tent and allowed Toronto to get into the end zone. They've been able to bow up their backs, stop them, and force Vanderjet to come into the game. And Ken Austin mentioned it earlier. You'd rather give up 3 than give up 7 defensively.
28-yard field goal attempt. It is 3rd and 3, so Vanderjet's number is called. And Mike Vanderjet, the kid from Oakville is having himself an evening in the Grey Cup game. Vanderjet has given the Argos a 33-23 lead.
Early in the fourth quarter, it's Toronto by 10, thanks in large part, Ken, to the work of Robert Drummond. He's the workhorse now.
Yeah, they've run this shovel pass quite a bit here in the second half, and I'll tell you, Robert Drummond's similar to a lot of great backs, and that is they get stronger as the game goes on, and that's what's happening here.
Dave, how about his footing?
Oh, great footing. I think he has different cleats than everyone else. Who knows? But great athletic ability to stay up, and whether he's running the ball up the middle or it's a shovel pass, he's getting the job done.
Chris, it was Jimmy the Jet in the first half, Robert Drummond in the second half.
Sure is. Speaking of his athletic ability, he was telling me the other day he ran a 10-3 100 meters as a sophomore in high school. His cousin John Drummond of the U.S. relay team, and he admitted he took some ribbing from his Canadian teammates after the Olympic results. Here's Mark Tolbert on that end around for the Eskimos, and he's taken down near the 40-yard line. That's a gain of 5 as Demetrius Maxey, in pursuit of Tolbert, made the tackle.
And that's one of the things about this Toronto defense as they set up the reverse with Tolbert, is the great pursuit. Demetrius Maxey is playing tackle in this game where he had played in for most of the season with the Argos, but great pursuit down the line of scrimmage to make the tackle.
Well, it's getting to crunch time for the Eskimos, now down by 10. 2nd and 5. McManus over the middle, and looks like it's going to be ruled a catch by the sure-handed Darren Flutie.
And Darren is in a lot of pain.
It's a key catch for Darren because someone's clean. Looks like Givens comes clean on McManus. He sees him coming. He waits, and he allows Flutie to come underneath the coverage. Here's Darren Flutie, matched up man-to-man, breaks inside. Ed Berry trying to get there, but the ball's thrown down low, and Darren goes down and catches it.
And that's a point that Ken Austin had made earlier. They would like to get Darren Flutie matched one-on-one with Ed Berry.
It's a first down, Edmonton, at the Eskimo 46. McManus, blunt, nailed immediately. Great defensive play there by Ken Benson, the quiet man amongst the linebackers for the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, it's hard to get a word out of Ken Benson edgewise. You think about it, he led the CFL in tackles back in 1993, played last season in Baltimore with Don Matthews, actually started out and played the first game this season with Montreal prior to being released, but Don Matthews knew what he had in Ken Benson, scooped him up off the waiver wire, and he's been a starter ever since in Toronto.
Only a yard on that reception, so 2nd and 9. McManus, good protection. Eddie Brown, crossing pattern, first down, as Eddie Brown makes his presence felt again in this second half.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussions about Eddie Brown coming over the middle. A lot of people say he won't come over the middle and catch the football. He's come over the middle several times for me in the past, and here he is coming over the middle for McManus, underneath the coverage, makes a catch. And now Eddie does a smart thing here. He has a chance to turn it down and maybe lose some ground to make a big play. He realizes he needs to make sure he has the first down, and he goes upfield.
But, David, in a game of this magnitude, everybody wants to make the big play.
It's at the Argo 48 after that 16-yard pickup, and McManus going to Brown again. And he's at the 25-yard line.
Well, this is the key now. Now he's got Eddie Brown in the game. We talked about it early in the game. If you get Eddie involved, suddenly his focus changes, and he feels like, hey, I'm a guy that's going to make something happen. He gets a couple of balls thrown. He had one thrown to him earlier in this half. Now he's made 2 big plays in this drive. You get that guy involved with his mindset, he can really make some things happen.
David, you really have to appreciate the job that the offensive line is doing. Danny McManus is not even concerned with the Toronto pass rush.
8:20 to go. First down, Edmonton. Goes wide side. Tolbert has the catch and another first down. Ed Berry wrestled him out of bounds. The U of Alberta product with a catch.
And David, he's working from sideline to sideline. What does that create the problem for in a defensive secondary?
Well, they're just playing a zone here, and everybody is getting into the holes that they need to get into. This time Tolbert stays outside because he sees the halfback sitting inside Ed Berry. McManus reads it, throws the ball wide, and Tolbert picks up a first down.
An impressive march for the Eskimos, and it's 1st and goal. The ball just inside the 10-yard line. Here comes the heat. McManus over the middle, I don't think Tony Burse expected the football. Down he goes at the 5.
I don't think he expected the football, but I don't think he expected for Benson to be riding him as soon as the football got there. It could have easily been a pass interference on the play because Ken Benson was clearly there prior to Tony Burse making the catch on the football. McManus sitting back, getting a late pressure, but he's staying in the pocket, getting the ball away.
Well, that ball was not intended for Tony Burse. That ball was intended for Jim Sandusky coming inside, and Burse just happened to sit down and turned around and caught the football.
2nd and goal from the 5. Blunt takes the pitch. Eric Blunt near the goal line, touchdown!
Eric Blunt takes the toss, gets great blocking there. You see Lachey getting washed by the play, and then Eric, with his ability to run, stays low center of gravity and plays off the block or plays off the hit to score.
That is the search series. That is a staple play in every CFL offensive arsenal, but Eric Blunt runs it so well. He reads the block of the offensive lineman, but the surge up front to get him in for 6.
Fleming adds the extra point. It's a 3-point game again with 6:57 to play in the 4th quarter. What a drive by the Eskimos. Number 2 rusher in the CFL this year with 1,091 yards. Eric Blunt caps an impressive Eskimo drive.
Just a basic search run. You get the ball deep in the backfield, and all tailbacks love that scenario where they can use their peripheral vision and view the hole from a deep and hit it.
That's exactly right, and he's just looking for a crease, and here you see O'Shea being washed by the hole. He hits it right up behind his offensive lineman and sticks it in the end zone.
And Leo Groenewegen, you think about how illustrious career he has had, 180 straight games, and this is his first Grey Cup contest.
We're in for a great finish, folks. Under 7 minutes to play and a field goal separating the Eskimos and Argos. Clements drops the ball. Pinball shakes a couple tackles and now is ridden out at the Eskimo bench, and a marker is down. And this has been a penalty-free game for the most part.
And Chris, you talk about only a field goal separating the 2 teams.
Yeah, we're in a situation where had Fleming made his 3 field goals, Edmonton's sitting on a 6-point lead right here. So Vanderjack had done a great job.
Toronto number 50, first down.
As you see now, Toronto's going to start in the hole offensively. Vanderjack has done a great job of putting the ball through the field, through the uprights for Toronto. Fleming has struggled.
Great drive, David.
It was a tremendous drive. In my opinion, it was the best drive of the game because Danny McManus got everybody on his team involved. Blunt caught a pass, ran for a touchdown. He went 6 for 6 in the drive for 65 yards. Got Eddie Brown the ball twice, Darren Flutie.
And the key was, David, as any quarterback likes to do, you spread it around to all your receivers.
And now the fans, pro Edmonton, are exhorting the defense. Flutie, pressure on, dumps it off, and away goes Drummond. Well, the big horse out of the backfield once again.
And Ken Austin alluded to it. Robert Drummond is getting stronger and stronger as this game goes on. Doug Flutie is doing everything that he can right now to get the ball in Robert Drummond's hands.
As a quarterback, as the game goes on, especially in the dying moments, you start to find the guys that are making plays for you, and you feed them with the football, and that's exactly what Doug's doing with Robert Drummond.
And we're seeing a classic example of Flutie ball.
14 yards on that catch by Drummond. He has 6 for 78, while Mazzotti paces on the sidelines with a Charlie horse, and Flutie calls timeout. Doug Flutie using his timeout.
Chris, it looked like the crowd gave him a problem. This crowd has really jumped on the back of the Edmonton Eskimos.
Don Matthews was telling us last week, Doug Flutie tried to make up a play at the line of scrimmage, ran out of time, had to use a timeout, and here with 5:48 to go, they burned their timeout.
It looked like he wanted to change the play, but the crowd gave him a problem.
And there's no doubt there are Argo fans here, but it's a pro-Edmonton crowd. 1st and 10. Flutie pulls it down. And down he goes at the 43-yard line. Gain of close to 9 for Doug Flutie. Well, there's Doug Flutie, one of his biggest fans. Ron Lancaster, a great admirer of number 2 of the Argos.
Well, how can you not admire Doug Flutie? I mean, such imagination and creativity when he's out on the field. Not only does he execute the plays, but last week we watched him late in the game with Dwayne Demetrician on the sideline diagramming plays with about 4 minutes to go in the game. Demetrician was about to get his first action, but Doug Flutie wanted to make sure that his young receiver knew what he was doing once he got in the lineup.
2nd and a yard. Robert Drummond nailed and pushed back. I don't think he got there.
Willie Pless, defensive MVP 4 times. That's how you play defense. You put your head up in the hole and you drive them back.
And that's why some feel that Willie Pless is the Doug Flutie of CFL defensive players. And he is now the all-time leading tackler in Grey Cup play.
Well, Willie Pless left college at Kansas State being the Big 8's all-time leading tackler. He is also the CFL's all-time leading tackler. And Robert Drummond is down on the play after that hit by Willie Pless.
Willie Pless with 6 tackles on the day. And they're not going to be able to measure until Drummond gets attention.
But you talk about textbook filling the hole, that's Willie Pless. There hasn't been a better tackler in the history of the CFL.
There's Chris Perez. He's from Willie Pless's school, and he was telling me the other day that the coach at Kansas would bring Pless back just as an inspiration to the collegians. He trained with them in the offseason. Willie Pless is a legend at Kansas, and Chris Perez says it's just an honor to be on the same football field as Willie Pless. Well, we've got a timeout. Drummond getting attention, a measurement forthcoming. 4:57 to play in a terrific 84th Grey Cup game. Well, there's Paul Mazzotti, who is out of the Argo offensive scheme of things at the moment, continues to have a cramping problem, which is similar to that of Donald Smith, we understand. And Robert Drummond is just now on his feet and making his way to the sideline.
Well, Robert Drummond a couple of times this year has suffered from burners. There was a game against Calgary at Sky Dome where Alondra Johnson met him up in the hole and he suffered a burner. And that time he and Willie Pless met right up at the top. You'll see the collision right at the top. He puts face mask to face mask, and Willie Pless is just brought a load up in the hole, and you can see the snow flying, so he most likely suffered a burner on the play. But Robert Drummond will be back after a few moments on the sideline. He has to miss 3 plays.
Drummond paid the price, but got the first down at the 45. Argos with the ball and a 3-point lead. 4:37 to go. The shovel toss inside. J.P. Izquierdo taken down, and a flag as well, and it looks like a face mask call is going against the Eskimos.
Willie Pless is going to be called for a face mask.
Major foul, face mask, Edmonton number 39, first down.
But that was not a face mask on the play. Willie Pless grabbed the back and the side of the helmet. That you should not get a flag. You'll get a look right here as Pless comes around. He has the back of Izquierdo's helmet. That is not a face mask because as he turned, he let it go. He got flagged for it, though.
J.P. Izquierdo into the game in place of Drummond. Won a Grey Cup with Edmonton in '93 and with the Argos in '91. And with that penalty of 15 yards, it's now down to the Edmonton 48. Flutie pulled it back and now goes outside, and it's Izquierdo. J.P. Izquierdo with another big first down.
Some concern on Ronnie Lancaster, and I'll tell you how important a penalty of that magnitude can be. If you recall last week on a punt, when there was a Calgary player caught in that no-yard zone and it gave Edmonton great field position for that game-winning field goal, that penalty gave Toronto great field position to keep this drive going with another first down.
I'll tell you what, you have to applaud Izquierdo. He comes in from the sideline, probably just been playing special teams all day. Comes in, is taking care of the ball on a run and a catch.
3.5 minutes to play. First down, Toronto. and a 3-point lead. Flutie on the run again and slides feet first inside the 25.
I think that goes back to a point, Dave, when you talk about Escuero coming in, protecting the ball, we're going to get Drummond back in the game. But that's the Don Matthews preparation for players. When you have an opportunity, it behooves you to make the best of it. And Don Matthews preaches that with his players.
And Don had talked about building this team on veterans, and he enjoys having veterans around him because they make those kind of decisions. Sometimes he doesn't need to tell people that. They go out and do the job because they played the game so long.
Gain of 8 for Flutie, who has 90 yards rushing on the day. 2nd and 2. There's Drummond. And off the left side, he'll be close. Malvin Hunter with the tackle.
But it was Willie Pless shooting the gap. Once again, just a stride away from bringing Robert Drummond down behind the line of scrimmage. They may have to measure this one.
John Matthews anxious to find out if they've moved the sticks or not. Edmonton Eskimos did not allow a touchdown last week against Calgary. Now they're digging in. It's 3rd and less than a yard for the Argos. Benny Goods and company trying to force the Argos into a field goal situation here. Vanderjagt awaits.
You know, you think about Mike Vanderjagt and the fine season that he's had this year. 198 points on the regular season, the 4th highest in Argo history by a kicker. And that's what it's all about there, the Holy Grail, the Grey Cup, the 1996 edition, the 84th time it will be handed out.
Just want to acknowledge the work of our spotter, Art Darch, who has his name on the cup. Member of the 52 team. Check that 53, and I even checked for your name, Art.
He just spotted it on the trophy. That's why he could tell you that.
He's the only guy on the team that year that they don't have the first initial. It's just Darch.
Everyone knew what it meant.
3rd and less than a yard. Flutie will keep. Not much there. Ball popped loose.
I don't know if he got it, Chris. This is all going to depend on the spot. But you talk about a defensive surge. The Edmonton Eskimos came across that line of scrimmage with authority and really reestablished the line of scrimmage. This is going to be also important on the measurement.
And Ronnie Lancaster out on the field, incensed.
I think this play was blown dead way too soon. Flutie dives in and he's laying on top of bodies, and all of a sudden the ball's jarred loose, and I think Ron's got a complaint.
I'm curious about the spot too, because there was really no movement.
Well, I tell you, that Edmonton defensive unit did a great job of coming across the ball, and if he gets the first down, it's from the generosity of the spot.
Wow.
You know, he may never have had control of the football. This would be a great shot if we can get a replay of it, because Doug Flutie lost that ball. As David said, they blew the whistle too soon on the play, and Ronnie Lancaster is incensed.
Well, you know it's a bad call because you never see Ron Lancaster reacting like that. First down, though. Argos continue the march. Following Vic Stevenson, Flutie is nailed at the 20-yard line, and maybe a couple on the play.
And we get a replay of it here. Watch as Doug Flutie never really has possession of the football. The ball is out clearly at the snap. The officials blow the ball dead on the play, and Doug Flutie never gained possession. That should be an Edmonton Eskimos football. You know, this has been a great played football game, and it would be a shame to see the Edmonton Eskimos lose on a play like that when Doug Flutie clearly did not have possession of the football.
No turnovers in the game, but there should be one. Now 2nd down and 6. Flutie, Drummond can't hang on. And it brings up 3rd down with 1:38 to play.
And Chris, I want to take you back to a moment. The 1994 Grey Cup. Danny McManus to Ray Alexander. A questionable catch that Ray Alexander made on a pass from Danny McManus. that he may not have had possession of, but kept the drive alive for the BC Lions, and Louis Pasaglia had an opportunity to kick the game-winning field goal off of that.
Well, the Argos have to settle now for a field goal attempt.
Now, Sean Fleming has missed 3. If you recall, David, you talked about it being the most important factor of this game. It would be a much different game if he had made those.
Oh, there's no question about that. But Edmonton's defense did what they needed to do. Once they got in that territory, they held them to 3.
This appears to be from 27 yards out. And Vanderjagt has made another 5 on the day for Mike Vanderjagt. And Don Matthews and the Argos have a 6-point lead. But let's go back a little further. The 87 Grey Cup, and this game has reminded me so much of that between Edmonton and Toronto. That finished 38-36 Edmonton. Danny Barrett scored a touchdown late in that game, but then Edmonton came back. And Jerry Corrick kicked the last-second field goal to win it.
You know, it was a marvelous game. It was played flashback. We'll get a shot of it right here. Jerry Corrick lined up from 49 yards out with 47 seconds to go, right down the pipe.
A seesaw game that ended 38-36 Edmonton. It's 36-30 Toronto. And the Eskimos now with 1:34 on the clock must score a major.
And David, Danny McManus has been wielding a hot hand for the most part tonight.
Well, Ron Lancaster has a decision here. He can go with the kickoff, or he can take the ball at the 35, and Ron decided to put the ball in the hands of the guy that's made so many plays for him down through the years, and that's Gizmo Williams.
And Ronnie was having to be restrained on the sideline by Larry Ruck. Larry Ruck was restraining him, and Ronnie was going nuts on the officials because he saw that ball clearly come out when Doug Flutie was taking the snap, and he was incensed, and he is still infuriated on the sideline. He has a valid reason to be, because if you take your team all this way and you lose on a bad call like that by the officials, you hate for the Zebras to control the football game, but that's one that they clearly blew.
And what it means is Lancaster's team needs a touchdown and not a field goal. Had that fumble stood, as the ball is covered by Errol Martin, had the fumble stood for Edmonton, they'd only need a field goal to tie. Now they need a touchdown to win it.
Not only would they have just needed a field goal, but it would have been a great momentum swing.
Been a great momentum swing. They'd had great field position. You know, Jake Ireland's in perfect position to make that call. He's standing right behind the quarterback. That's really a tough one to miss.
And his only job on that play, Jake Ireland, is to watch the quarterback. His job is to protect the quarterback, so he should clearly see the quarterback when the ball comes out on the snap that he never had possession of it.
Now they have to refocus, though. The ball just nudging the Edmonton 40, 1:33 to go. And Danny McManus, who was perfect on the last drive, 6 for 6, goes to work, delivering, picked off. Adrian Smith is going to score. Touchdown, Argonauts. Well, we talked about interceptions, and isn't it ironic after playing near perfect football, an interception would come back to haunt Danny McManus again.
Well, I had mentioned right as the fourth quarter began, we talked about how cleanly the game had been played. There'd been no turnovers, even in the weather condition. But I thought that a turnover was going to determine who would win this ball game. It looked like Edmonton had that turnover. All of a sudden, the next play, we turn around and hear Smith running for a touchdown.
And coming into this game, it was the Edmonton defense that had gotten all the accolades for their success during the year. But this Toronto defense actually had 3 more turnovers than the Edmonton defense on the regular season. And as you spoke about, it's a turnover that's the decisive factor in the 84th Grey Cup.
Adrian Smith had a touchdown on an interception here Labor Day. He's a former Tiger Cat. And once again, he has come up with a big pick, and it's about A minute 22 away from the Argos claiming the ultimate prize in Canadian football.
I'll tell you, this is the beauty of the Canadian Football League now. They're down. Here's Danny McManus is going to throw just a curl route in the zone. The ball bounces right off Darren's chest as he's trying to slide on his back to make the catch, and Adrian Smith scores. But the beauty of the Canadian Football League is you're never out of it. I played in a game against BC 3 years ago where we were down by 13 points with 49 seconds left on the clock, and we won the ball game. So this game is not over by any stretch. They score, you can get an onside kick and score because the clock stops with every play.
And we have seen the Gizmo take one back all the way, but this has been a marvelous game offensively and special team-wise by both teams tonight.
Don Matthews, that close to his third Grey Cup ring as a head coach.
And this is his third consecutive Grey Cup that he has taken his teams to. And Ron Lancaster, you can see him a bit deflated on the sideline.
No CFL coach has ever won back-to-back Grey Cups.
And this is the play that will create all the controversy in the papers and in the media over the next couple of days.
Here's Benny Goods rumbling with the football, and he's upended at the 41-yard line. Now this is tough for McManus, who talked about the two previous meetings with Toronto. He lamented an interception in the first game that snuffed out a first-half scoring drive, and they lost by a field goal. And in the second meeting between these two teams, it was 24-17 late in the game, and he threw an interception to Mike O'Shea. And now Doug Flutie is just that close from winning his second Grey Cup.
Well, you know, it's been a marvelous game by both quarterbacks tonight, Doug Flutie and Danny McManus. Danny McManus with well over 300 yards passing.
McManus outlets to Blunt, and Blunt upended by Donnie Wilson at the 45. Paul Mazzotti in pain, but it'll be cushioned in about a minute and 11 when the celebration begins, barring an Archer-like comeback.
And he's one of the 5 holdovers from that 1991 Grey Cup Argonaut victory.
Blunt can't hang on, and it's third down now, Edmonton.
See, these are the things that they're playing a deep zone, which you expect in this situation. They're up 2 scores. They're going to show a zone. He needs to dump the football off. That's the only throw he's getting, and the guys have to make the plays for him. That ball's thrown. Blunt's got to make that catch and get him the first down. The important thing here for Danny is to get him in the end zone, to give him a chance to get an onside kick.
But they have to pick up the first down right here.
Well, it's all down to this for Edmonton. 3rd and 5, and McManus will keep it alive.
McManus to Darren Flutie.
Darren Flutie the catch. He's down at the Argo 45-yard line.
And I tell you right now, for Toronto, they're happy to give up the first down. It really doesn't bother them. Right now, they're still a little overjoyous about the celebration that will be taking place in about 58 seconds. They will bend, but they will not break. They'll let Danny McManus take all that stuff underneath because they're concerned about joy of celebrating and sipping from the cup.
Well, I might be overly optimistic, but this game is not over by a long stretch. With McManus with the ball in his hands, he's made too many things happen late in ball games, especially in the postseason.
Well, 58 seconds is an eternity in a CFL game, but when you have a great defense like Toronto has demonstrated that they have, I mean, it's a long road. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I kind of like Toronto's odds right now hanging on to this lead.
38,595, largest crowd ever to watch a game at Ivor Wynne, have enjoyed a thriller. And with all the talk this week, why don't we just say, let's do it again next year?
Hey, that would be the greatest thing that could ever occur, is that if Grey Cup 97 could give you the moments that Grey Cup 96 has delivered, I think everyone in Canada will be happy.
What we have seen is an advertisement of why the league should continue. Here's Darren Flutie down again.
You know, that's something special about this game that you don't get in any other championship game. You get 60 minutes of excitement.
First down, and McManus over the middle. Mark Tobert with Mike O'Shea draped all over him.
And I keep watching David over here telling them to hurry up. They're taking too much time between plays.
Well, Danny's got to get the plays called so he doesn't lose any time on the clock. He did a great job of managing the clock in the first half to give him a chance to score late. He needs to do the same here.
Needs 2 major scores, 43-30. Has to look deeper, does Sandusky. Is it a catch? No. It hit the turf. You saw the snow fly as Sandusky tried to scoop it off the snow.
But just a great effort by Jim Sandusky. That's the thing that you get in a game of this magnitude. You get 60 minutes of effort. Jim Sandusky trying to slow down, engage himself for that football. Got one hand on it, but you could clearly see where it met the snow.
36 seconds on the clock. Tony Burse didn't surprise the Argos with that call.
Well, they needed to pick up the yard to get the first down, but they only have 31 seconds to operate with.
Well, he needs to throw the football. He's going to have to start trying to hit the seams just like he did there to Sandusky. He was just a little inaccurate with the football, and Jim couldn't adjust to it.
Ron Lancaster has called timeout with 31 seconds to play. And he'll be thinking about the missed call, the fumble that should have been, for a long time.
But now for the second time in the last 3 Grey Cups, it's been a play of that magnitude that has had a huge decision in the outcome of the game. But Don Matthews has a marvelously coached football team that is executed in every facet, and special teams showed up big today.
High snap pulled down by McManus, who has good protection and looks into the end zone. Jump ball incomplete. As Johnny Harris went up for it against Don Blair. .22 seconds on the clock. Well, Michael O'Shea signed with the Argos, felt this was his best shot at a Grey Cup, and touch of irony, at his old locker back. The Argos in the Hamilton dressing room this week. Remember when Edmonton won in '93? They were in Calgary's dressing room. Arch rivals. Here's McManus on second down. Over the middle, Tolbert makes the catch at the 6-yard line. 21 seconds left.
Well, they just lost 3 seconds off of the clock. The clock is supposed to stop with the dead play. There were 23 seconds left when he went down when Tolbert went down with the reception. They need to get that clock adjusted. Danny needs every second he can get.
Saying a little Southern Ontario bias here by the clock timekeeper.
Not in Hamilton if it favored the Argos.
This is a great finish to this game. Danny McManus once again marching his team back down the field. David said he had the best drive of the game late in the third, beginning of the fourth quarter when he marched 74 yards for a touchdown. Seems he'll get one more chance to pump it in for 6.
Well, he deserves a salute today, Danny McManus. 24 of 36, 406 yards. Couple of touchdown passes.
And one unfortunate mistake that he'll be labeled with on a tip deflected ball that went off of Darren Flutie into the hands of Adrian Smith for an interception return for a touchdown.
The officials conferring. Not sure whether they're trying to determine how many seconds could be added on. Mike Kislak,
20 seconds left.
David Archer's center a year ago.
Well, you know, this is what it's all about, Chris. I mean, all the emotion, all the jubilation, the months of preparing, David, when players come into a game of this magnitude, and all you want to do is walk out victorious. It doesn't matter what the final score is. You just want to have a chance to sip from the cup.
Yeah, the money will be gone in no time, but you'll always have the ring, and you'll have the camaraderie of the teammates that you won a championship with, and those are the things you hang on forever.
The memories of it, I mean, it's never ending.
Here's McManus looking to the end zone, and incomplete. Eddie Brown was his target.
Well, Adrian Smith is celebrating there, but the ball was thrown behind Eddie Brown, and so Eddie had no chance to make the play. Adrian really didn't do much there, but Danny's still trying to stick it in the end zone. You got to love this guy's heart, still fighting to try to make something happen.
You know, we saw the Grey Cup go by moments ago, and you think about all the names that are inscribed on that Grey Cup, the players who have received rings, and even before they were handing out rings to players. that's the one lasting memory that you'll always have from your professional career.
Second down. McManus into the end zone. Tolbert, touchdown! So it's not done yet. 9 seconds left.
And what a marvelous drive crafted by Danny McManus. All the poise and concentration to guide his team back down the field after throwing that devastating interception to Adrian Smith, but to have the poise and the frame of mind to not be rattled and come back and get his team into the end zone once again for 6.
University of Alberta product into the end zone. Sean Fleming adds the extra point, 43-37, and there's Doug Flutie's wife, anxious now because she knows there'll be a short kickoff before this is over.
And I want to go back to a point that David was making early. 1993, Sean Fleming, the hero of the 93 Grey Cup. He was 6 for 7 in that game. Tonight, he has missed 3. The difference in the game is 6 points. That's 9 points that Edmonton did not get on the scoreboard. What a lovely shot. The Earl Grey Cup, the symbol of Canadian Football League excellence.
That last Eskimo drive, 10 plays, 69 yards. They used 1:13. McManus to Tolbert to cap it. And you wonder, Fleming's kicked a lot of field goals in snowy, slippery conditions, but he didn't kick a lot this week because of the Charlie horse. He made a saving tackle on Marvin Coleman in the final minute of the Western Final. And you wonder if that's the reason he was ineffective today.
Well, he was 5 for 6 in that game last week in the Western Final versus Calgary. Kicked all the points that Edmonton scored to get here to the Grey Cup. This season, he hit on 82% of his field goal attempts compared to 69 last year. So he had a much more successful season, but as in the season finale, he just wasn't able to get it through the uprights.
Let's see if they can execute the short kick as the Esks stack this side of the field. It's up for grabs. On the turf, Argos have it and a flag down.
Now, I'm interested in the call here. I think what they're going to call on the Eskimos is interference because you can't call no yards on the kickoff because it's a live ball, so it's very difficult. They're going to hit Tony Burch. You see several Argonauts going after him. But, you know, this is something you don't need to have any nitpicking. The game is in hand if you're the Argos and you've recovered the football. Just take it and down it and celebrate your championship.
Argos last winners in 1991. Doug Flutie's ready to decline the penalties.
And I think the myth will be dispelled about Doug Flutie not being able to play in cold weather. Mike Vanderjet celebrating.
Edmonton, number 34, decline, first down.
Chris, I want to make this point. Doug Flutie has averaged 33.7 points a game in the playoffs and Grey Cups. And you think about it tonight, there's 43 on the board for Toronto. The problem has been is that his defense has not been able to stop the opposing teams from outscoring his offense. But Doug Flutie will celebrate his second championship tonight.
Well, one point I would like to make, and I concur with you, James, on that, but I would like to say that Doug's had a tremendous amount of help today. He didn't win this by himself. And in my opinion, Robert Drummond is your MVP of this ballgame.
Robert Drummond has played a marvelous game for Toronto tonight in all facets. You talk about, Dave, he's receiving out of the backfield, but more important, controlling the game's tempo in running with the football.
He allowed Doug to do so many things, get out of the pocket, dump the football to him, so much going on. Pinball Clemens has really been the heart and soul of this team. A little guy, but they all gathered around him before the game. He gets them jacked up. He's a great guy. I mean, the Tom Pate Award winner this year.
This was a 4-14 team last year, 15-3. Double blue and Grey Cup champions in 1996. Doug Flutie and the Toronto Argonauts.
What an outstanding effort by the league's MVP and the double blue to bring the Grey Cup back to Toronto once again in 1996. You have to take your hats off to him. You spoke about the 15-3 regular season record to waltz through the playoffs. 43 points last week versus Montreal, 43 points tonight versus Edmonton to wrap it all up.
There's the class of Doug Flutie immediately looking for his brother, and then Danny McManus and Ron Lancaster. We'll talk about the call that went against him, a costly fumble that was erased by the officials late in the game.
You know, he was such a fiery competitor as a player, and he still has that fire and tenaciousness as a coach. He is not going to rest it all easy about that non-call.
There's Robert Drummond as we go down to the field and join Mark Lee.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'm with Doug Flutie, who has been named the most valuable player in this Grey Cup victory. Doug, you get the outstanding player of the season, a Grey Cup, and the MVP. What more can a man ask?
That's the full package. It's been missing the last few years. And I figure maybe this is to spell some of the miss, and it was fun, man. Guys just played their heart out, and the big plays, I don't know, look at the score, 43-37. When was the last Super Bowl like that?
No, they're always exciting at Grey Cup time here in Canada. Tell me about your decision to wear the gloves for the first time.
I've messed with it over the years, and the problem is that if it's really cold, today wasn't that cold, if it's really cold, your hands freeze with these gloves, but it does give you a consistent grip. So, I mean, I can throw the ball in them, but if the temperature drops too low, you got to go to the hand warmer thing and just leave your bare hands, because once they get cold in gloves, you can't get them warm.
It looked like it took a while early in the first half of the offense to get its bearings in these conditions.
It was just a couple sloppy plays. We had a drop ball in the first drive and had to punt. We tried the direct snap, and it went high over Drum's head. A bunch of little things like that, but big play on special teams, big play on defense, helped secure the win.
Doug, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Doug Flutie, the MVP of this Grey Cup game. Let's go to Scott Oak.
All right, Mark, and here are our game day analysts, Kent Austin of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Dave Sapunjas of the Calgary Stampeders, as we watch Don Matthews celebrate this Grey Cup victory. Kent, first of all, what about the call? That'll be debated for a long, long time, and it's too bad that had to happen in a well-played game like this.
Well, it really is too bad, and I just hope that the focus in the media tomorrow, and though you know it's going to happen, it's going to be centered on that call, and it's too bad that it happened. But you know what? It never comes down to just one play, although that was a very, very key play in the game.
Dave, Doug Flutie, I think, would be upset if anybody made a big deal over how well he played in this kind of weather, because he's always tried to make the point that it's not a big issue that, yes, his hands froze back in '93 when it was 40 below, but did he make a statement today?
I think he did. He played a fantastic game, and I think he just said right there that he probably loved enjoying playing in this type of weather with the snow coming down, and he raised the point that both teams played their hearts out, and it was a fantastic game to watch.
And the Argos win, and there was a hometown factor in this victory. We just saw one of them, Paul Mazzotti, Mike Moriali, both from Hamilton. They realized a dream by playing for the Cup at Ivor Wynne before a huge contingent of friends and family. And there's Doug Flutie celebrating. I'm told the Grey Cup is just being brought onto the stage, and we're getting set for the presentation. Can't a word about Don Matthews and his proficiency as a head coach in this league. He is probably now the greatest current coach in the CFL.
I don't think there's any doubt that he's the best coach in the CFL. I think he's in a class by himself, and I'll go one step further. I think Don may be one of the best coaches in North America. He's coached up here in the CFL his whole career, but I think you put him in any league on any level, and he's going to be just as successful.
Dave, a word on the performance of the Edmonton Eskimos. They played very, very well today.
I think Ron Lancaster and all the players have to be very proud of how they played. They came in here and they knew they were against Doug Flutie and a fantastic team that was built by Don Matthews, but they have to be proud of how they played.
All right, back out to the field, and here's Steve Armitage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Cup is back home in Canada. It gives me great pleasure to call upon the Commissioner of the Canadian Football League, Mr. Larry Smith, to present the Grey Cup for the 84th time.
Bob, on behalf of all the fans here today and the CFL, congratulations to the Toronto Argonauts. You guys played a great game, and you deserve to win. All the best to you, Bob.
Thanks, Larry. I want to pass along our congratulations to the Edmonton Eskimos for a hard-fought battle and for all the fans who came out tonight to see another great Grey Cup game. I'd also like to thank our fans who have stuck by us through some lean years. And
here's the Cup!
The Cup, Ivan! The Cup!
Well, this Grey Cup underlines an amazing turnaround. The Argos were 4-14 last season. Now they're the best team in all the land, and about that there is absolutely no dispute. It quickly became clear the Argos would be the team to beat this season, and in the end, no one could. We'll return to Ivor Wynne. 43-37 the final, and so the Toronto Argonauts are Grey Cup champions. The team president, Bob Nicholson, hoists the cup. In the 87 Halton High School Region Final, Mike Vanderjagt booted the winning field goal for the Oakville White Oaks here at Ivor Wynne Stadium. The stakes were a touch higher today, and Vanderjagt came through with 5 field goals for the Argos. They were huge.
Vanderjagt was 100%, and that was one of the differences in the ballgame.
On the other hand, Dave, Sean Fleming will have all offseason now to think about the 3 he missed.
Yeah, that's tough. He missed 3, and they were costly points, but Cunningham missed a touchdown as well, so that maybe offsets it all.
General comment on this game. It really exceeded expectations, did it not, for a game played in these conditions?
I certainly wasn't expecting the game to be this high scoring with 2 great defenses. I think one ranked number 1 and 2 in the league, but the offenses showed up, and both quarterbacks played great.
Quiet moment now in the Toronto Argonaut locker room. This is a tradition that Don Matthews engages in after every game. This time, though, they're celebrating a Grey Cup victory. And full value for it were the Argos. They had all the weapons on display, I thought, today. Dave Sapunjas, Jimmy the Jet Cunningham going in the first half, Robert Drummond in the second half. Truly is an awesome team.
Yeah, they put together a great team at the start of the year, and that locker room there won't be quiet for long. They'll be celebrating throughout the night, and absolutely a great year for Toronto, and deservingly so.
You had nothing but praise for Doug Flutie the entire evening as you watched him play. Professional courtesy, I guess, that you're able to marvel at almost every play that he pulled off. You ever seen him play so well?
I guarantee you it's more than professional courtesy. I mean, the public out there, I hope you really have a healthy respect for what Doug can do. He's the best player that I've ever seen play this game, and again, he continues to make plays and pull off plays in a magical way in adverse conditions as well as dry conditions. He's by far the best quarterback I've ever seen.
Well, for all the years Doug Flutie has reigned in the Canadian Football League, he had but 1 Grey Cup ring until today, that from Calgary in 1992. Stampeders are a great regular season team. The Argos are strong in both the regular season and the playoffs, and now Doug Flutie has his 2nd Grey Cup championship. Well, in 1 year, the Grey Cup will be held in Montreal, but for now, the Argos have won 13 Grey Cups. This one justifies their role as favorite in the 84th championship game. They'd said that a loss today would have rendered a spectacular regular season meaningless. 15-3, the Grey Cup doesn't get much better than that. Here's Mark Lee.
All right, Scott, we're inside the victorious Argonaut locker room with the top Canadian of today's game, kicker Mike Vanderjagt. Mike, 5 for 5. You clearly won the kicking duel with your opponent, Sean Fleming, today.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with Sean today, but I mean, he's been a great kicker all year. He must have had some trouble with the footing, and my teammates helped me out, clear some spots away for me. I had a half-decent plant foot, and it really wasn't that big of a problem.
Mike, this must have been a thrill for you being an Oakville boy. I understand you won some championships here in high school back in the late 80s.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good place for me to kick over my football career, so I'm glad my parents were in the stands and all my friends and family in Oakville and Burlington, and it's just a great feeling right now.
Well, congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
Mike Vanderjagt. All right, here's another Argo teammate, Paul Massotti. This man has been through the good times and the bad with the Argos, Paul, from 91, the victory, and then the bad years, and now you get to sip it all over again after putting up with some tough years.
This tastes great to win in our hometown and to win for all the young guys like Noah, Cantor, and my cousin Mike Morelli, Norm Casola, taste the cup. It's just unbelievable.
Well, they say patience is a virtue. How do you feel being one of only 5 players in this team who experienced 91 and still around to do it again?
Well, it's the nature of this league, but it just feels good to stay with this organization. I mean, it's been a heck of a journey to play with a guy like Pinball Clemens for 8 years. It's been a long time coming, and it feels great, especially to win at home. And I want to say hi to Stony Creek.
All right, another local boy makes good. Paul Massotti, congratulations. Let's go back to Scotto.
All right, Mark, this Grey Cup is for all 40 Argos, but especially a player like Paul Massotti, a holdover from 1991, the last time Toronto won the Cup before falling into a football abyss, but that fall has now ended in dramatic fashion as the Argos win the 84th Grey Cup championship. The Argos are Grey Cup champions for the 2nd time in 5 years as the result of victory in a game that had absolutely everything, including a brilliant performance by Doug Flutie. Never better than he's been today, and he has played awfully well in his CFL career. Let's go to Steve Armitage.
Thank you very much, Scott, and it is my pleasure now to present Doug Flutie, who was outstanding today, as you pointed out, with the Chrysler Canada MVP Award. And to make that presentation, we call upon Stephen Landry, the General Manager Marketing Chrysler Canada, who has a very special set of keys in his hand. Take it away, Stephen.
Thanks, Steve. This has been a great day, and I'd like to first thank the CFL and the City of Hamilton. This was one of the best Grey Cups ever, back and forth, hardly any penalties, and Edmonton came to play, and they played well. But Doug Flutie, you had a mission here in Toronto. You met the expectations of the Toronto Argonauts, and you brought the Grey Cup back. In recognition of that, I've got a set of keys here from Chrysler Canada and Dodge Trucks for a brand new 1997 Dodge Dakota Club Cab. You deserve it. You really are the most valuable player of today's game.
Well, thank you very much. And it was one of those days. I tell you what, I'm glad it's really brought a prestige to the game, Chrysler's involvement, and I'm very thankful for your involvement. And, you know, I totally forgot about there was an MVP to this game or anything, because there were so many guys that did so many things, and without Adrian Smith's big play towards the end, we wouldn't have won. Without Vanderjack's field goals and Drummond's, everybody made some great plays. And I'm just kind of the ringleader running the show, so I really appreciate it. Thank you for the award, and it's great to have Chrysler involved. Thank you.
Very welcome, Doug. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Doug Flutie, the MVP. Now let's go to Mark.
Thank you, Steve. This might be the most gracious champion in this locker room here today, Mike Pinball Clemens. Mike, your feelings, a winner in 91, some tough years between, and now another championship.
I just thank God to be around all the guys in this room. The guys in this room have created for me the most fun I've ever had playing football, even before this game today. And this game is so sweet. The Grey Cup now means so much more to me than it did in 91. I've matured, I've grown, I'm Canadian now, and I can feel the Grey Cup. I know what it means, and to go through all that hard time makes it so much sweet. I just thank God for my players, and to be able to play with these guys, they are wonderful.
Mike, I understand you actually contemplated quitting this team 5 games into the season. What's going through your mind now, considering that?
That wasn't quite accurate. No, I didn't contemplate quitting the team. There was some rough spots there, and you know, early on, I didn't know my role. My role wasn't wasn't maybe clearly defined yet, but I definitely didn't think about quitting. You know, you always want to be a part of everything that's going on, and that was a rough period for me, but it definitely all played off. The persistence paid off, and I like to quickly pay tribute to an Edmonton team that was just awesome today. And man, they gave us some just stiff competition, and there's no easy way right now, but you know, for those guys, there's no easy way. But yeah.
Okay, Mike, thanks for your time today. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Let's go back to Steve now with another presentation.
Thank you, Mark. This time it's the top Canadian, Mike Vanderjagt of the Argos, and Allison Patterson of Canadian Airlines joins me to make the presentation. Allison.
Thanks, Steve. Mike, on behalf of all the employees of Canadian Airlines, what a game, 5 for 5. And what we have for you is a trip for 2 on Canadian Airlines anywhere in North America. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Where are you going to go? Hopefully to the sunshine.
Oh, yeah. After today, I'll go anywhere where it's 90 and above.
Mike, congratulations. The top Canadian, Mike Vanderjagt at the Argos with 5 field goals. Mark, back to you.
All right, we're joined now by the Jet, Jimmy Cunningham, who unleashed a beauty in the first half, an 80-yard punt return for a touchdown. What's going through your mind right now, Jimmy?
Right now, you know, I'm real happy with the win. You know, I'm kind of upset that I dropped a touchdown pass, you know, that could have put the game away. I think it was in the 3rd quarter. But, you know, I'm happy with the victory, and, you know, we're the Grey Cup champs.
Jimmy, do you think the club caught a break on that Doug Flutie fumble in the 4th quarter?
To be honest with you, I don't even remember the fumble, you know. So what you talking about, I don't know. But, you know, we played real well tonight due with the circumstances. But, you know, I'm real happy with the win.
Jimmy, congratulations. You're a Grey Cup champ.
All right, thank you.
All right, back to Scott.
All right, Mark, big day for Jimmy the Jet Cunningham. And how about Mike Pinball Clemens? If he'd contemplated retirement, it surely would have been the CFL's loss. But as it is, tonight he has his 2nd Grey Cup ring. The Argos are celebrating here at Ivor Wynne Stadium. No one more so than veteran linebacker Don Wilson, who's had an incredible tour of duty. He goes 4 for 4 in this championship game. And let's go to Mark Lee.
All right, thank you, Scott. 4-0 in Grey Cup competition. This might well be the Argo lucky charm.
Well, you know, I've been fortunate and blessed. God has blessed me to be on some great teams. And
And all 4 championship teams I've been on was a great bunch of guys. And I'm just so happy to be a part of this. I'm glad that Don Matthews believed in us, believed in me, and to keep me here this year and to believe in our team. He said from jump that, you know, anything less than a Grey Cup is unsatisfactory, is a disappointment. And he was right to his word.
You said to me before this game on Monday, I said, any doubt you guys are going to lose this game or win this game? And you said, no, we're going to win it. Just matter of fact.
Yeah, because, you know, all year we've been finding ways to win, We won a lot of close games, and the coaches instill in us that.
Good thing you kept your toque on.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You know, well.
Where were we?
Yeah. And the coaches instilled in us that, you know, we are the best team in the CFL, so why should we lose in a game? So in every game we lost, he was totally pissed off with us, and a lot of players were very pissed off. So we had just gotten that attitude that, you know, we should win every game, and it was no different this week.
All right, congratulations. Don Wilson, 4 Grey Cups, no defeats. Way to go, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Defense on team, a teammate on defense, Mike O'Shea. Mike.
All the way with O'Shea.
All
the way with O'Shea.
That was a prophetic sign. How do you feel about winning a Grey Cup in a town you used to play in, coming back to the Argos?
I guess it's a little bit ironic, but I tell you, it make no difference where we played it. I just very fortunate to land on my feet in Toronto and to get an opportunity to play in the Grey Cup and to play with the good luck charm Donnie Wilson, 4 for 4. So
there you are up on the TV right there, making a great hit.
Should have been a step quicker. Might have been able to strip the ball.
Well, tell me about playing in these conditions, Mike. With all the snow on the field, did it favor the defense or the offense?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think that either defense has played terrifically at all, but. You know, we managed to get the job done and managed to get a victory, and you know, it just feels great.
Mike, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Mike O'Shea of the Argos, now to Steve Armitage.
Thank you, Mark. I'm in the Eskimos dressing room with head coach Ronnie Lancaster. And Ronnie, it's one of those games you hate to see somebody lose.
Well, you know what? I think that, you know, for a Grey Cup game and have a wild scoring affair, which I don't think a lot of people expected under the circumstances, and you know, I guess when you get to the Grey Cup, if you can get a real good, solid football game out of everybody, and that's really what it's all about. And we got a heck of effort from our guys today, and I know they did too. And Flutie's tough to control at the best of times, and we had a little trouble with him today, but we had our chances to win, and we didn't win.
Ronnie, you were incensed over one particular call.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that one, Steve. That's history. Too good a football game to worry about it.
A lot higher scored than most people thought.
Oh, I don't think anybody expected that under those conditions. I mean, that was as slippery, and you know they tried to do a great job of keeping the field clear, but that snow just kept coming. But I'll tell you, I'm really proud. Like Danny McManus hurt his shoulder early, and he stayed in there like a trooper, played a heck of a game. Darren Flutie took a couple shots. He got hurt, but he stayed there and played a heck of a game right there to the end. Our guys fought for 60 minutes is what we said we were going to do, so we really have no complaints.
Great season nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever expected us to get this far, and hey, it's amazing what you can do when the guys all think alike and the attitude is right and they work together, and that's what they did this year.
Ronnie Lancaster of the Edmonton Eskimos. Mark, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Steve. Here's the winning coach in today's Grey Cup, Don Matthews. Don, 2 in a row, 2 15-3 records in a row. You must feel awfully satisfied.
Well, you know, this is as good as it gets for me. This was a very, very special year because Toronto needed a football team that it could be proud of for the Canadian Football League. We got some great guys. You know, I've said it before. I enjoy going to work every day with these guys. There's not one guy on the team that I'm not happy to have here, and it was just been a fantastic year for me.
Don, huge special teams, 2 touchdowns on special teams here today. The big pick by Adrian Smith to seal the win. How did you see the game?
Well, you know, in the first half, I was really disappointed at the score because we only gave up 3 plays, 2 long plays on defense and 1 on special teams. Other than that, we controlled the ball. And Flutie was just awesome. I mean, Flutie kept the ball on long drives, kept moving the chains, finding a way, probing, going to our shuffle pass and all of those things. And he played Flutie ball. He's a phenomenal football player, and he does it all the time.
All right, Don, congratulations. Certainly writing your own page in Canadian football history.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's go back to Scott Oak.
All right, Mark, what an incredible career it's been for Don Matthews. 18 years in the Canadian Football League, 11 times he's coached in Grey Cup games, and now he has his 8th Grey Cup ring, transforming a 4-14 team into the best in the CFL. We'll return. In Hamilton, the celebration continues. Here's what's coming up next weekend on CBC. World Cup skiing from Lake Louise, Alberta on Saturday. Women's downhill. Karen Lee Gardner will join me for the call. Later that night, Molson Hockey Night in Canada begins with Toronto at Dallas, Washington at Montreal, and concludes with Calgary at America West Arena to face Phoenix. A week today from Lake Louise, another World Cup skiing speed event, the Women's Super G at 4 Eastern, 2 Mountain Time. In the locker room of the Toronto Argonauts, the celebration continues. There's Doug Flutie and Paul Mazzotti hoisting the cup. Argos won at 91, declined, but they're back on top now. Final comments from our game day analysts Kent Austin and Dave Sapungis. Dave Sapungis, what didn't this game have?
It had everything. It was a fantastic game. Total entertainment, and it sure was a pleasure to be a part of it somehow.
Kent, as often happens, the Grey Cup turns out to be a showcase. I suppose we can only hope we see another.
Well, if the league could find a way to take this game, bottle it, and market to the public, I think the league would have a long life left in it and would continue to operate. And it would be too bad to see the league falter at this point after witnessing a game like this.
Well, thank you both. Great to have you alongside today. Now let's go upstairs, get some final comments from Chris, James, and Dave.
Well, Scott, I know Dave Archer is another proud member of the CFL quarterbacking union. Let's tip our hats to both quarterbacks today.
Two big game quarterbacks played well today, but I think the overriding feeling was team. Team was what won it.
It became the second highest Grey Cup game in history. Only the 89 game, 43-40 for Saskatchewan was a higher scoring game. James, we had everything, a little controversy that Ron Lancaster avoided discussing, but absolutely everything happened.
But guys, isn't this what the CFL is all about? I mean, constant excitement. You never know what's going to occur. Last-minute heroics. I mean, you can't let this game go away. It was a marvelous game to be a part of, and I hope that it's back next year.
Well, I'd like to salute one player as well today, and I know even Edmonton fans are happy about Pierre Bercheval, who is a 9-year veteran, broke his ankle earlier this year. He had some great years in Edmonton and now in Toronto, and Pierre Bercheval, one of the Canadian players celebrating their first Grey Cup today. So it's an exciting day for him and for all of us up here after a splendid 1996 Grey Cup game. Scott?
All right, Chris, as it turns out, the confidence the Argos displayed all this week in Hamilton was justified. This was a team that had championship written all over it almost from the start of the season. And now, as we bring down the curtain on the CFL's 84th campaign, this is the point at which we always tell you how much we're looking forward to returning in 7 months' time to cover the road to the 85th Grey Cup, and we are. It's just that we're not entirely sure if anyone will be on the road. It remains for the CFL to restructure itself financially, but I would suggest that weeks like this and games like this certainly indicate that it might be a worthwhile exercise to save the only all-Canadian pro sports league in this country. I want to take a moment to thank our production and technical crews and our sponsors who make the CFL on CBC possible. This was a day to forget about the CFL's problems, and we hope you enjoyed the moment. Thanks for watching, and so long from Hamilton.
Your compass in hand, the map to the stars, and no one beside you to say where you're going or even how far. You're trying to decide as you stare into space, then you start spinning your wheels, waiting for something to call to your wandering heels. That's how it feels. Some roads will get you to heaven, some roads will wear down your shoes, some roads you know will be hellbound, but there's a road that'll get you through. Love is the soul's road calling you. So where is that road? Of a kind, we're stumbling blind, searching so hard that sometimes it can feel like we're losing our minds. Oh, how many times have we passed in the night, not knowing the other was there? Maybe together we'd finally be getting somewhere. Somewhere. Some roads will get you to heaven, some roads will only wear down your shoes, some roads you know will be hellbound, but there's a road that'll get the soul's road calling you. So where is that road? Racing around in a million directions. It's hard to know which way to turn. Suddenly there she is, just up ahead. When love turns their calling, you go on and follow that road. Follow that road. Some roads will get you to heaven. Some roads will wear down your shoes. Some roads you know will be hellbound, but there's a road that'll get you through. Love is the soul's road calling you. Love is the soul's road calling you. Love is the soul's road calling you. So where is that road? We're two of a kind. We're stumbling blind, searching so hard that sometimes it can feel like we're losing our minds. Oh, how many times have we passed in the night, not knowing the other was there? Maybe together we'd finally be getting somewhere. Somewhere. Some roads will get you to heaven. Some roads will wear down your shoes. Some roads you know will be hellbound, but there's a road that'll get you through. Love is the soul's road